Hello there, everybody. Welcome back to Star Wars Lads for our Star Wars Celebration Japan 2025 Day 1 reaction. We're going to be talking about all of the big announcements that have come out so far at Star Wars Celebration. And while we are filming this, Day 2 is just beginning. They're doing the Andor panel right now. So hopefully we'll have some breaking news and some live stuff to discuss here on the Andor panel. So hopefully you join us for the next few hours as we discuss all the latest from Star Wars news. But yesterday was such a big day, or last night slash this morning. There were so many things announced, so many things confirmed that we've been talking about, especially if you follow our Star Wars news streams every single week. So many things we've been talking about for months and months and months and years, and now they're confirmed to be coming out. So some pretty exciting times here for Star Wars, and we've got stuff to talk about from The Mandalorian and Grogu. Both of us got to see the trailer before it was, taken down by Disney, as well as the Darth Maul trailer. We'll be talking about Maul, Shadow Lord, as well, and we'll be talking about Ryan Gosling and Shawn Levy's new movie, Star Wars Starfighter. We'll be talking about some stuff from Light and Magic. We'll be talking about Star Wars publishing, manga, and books, and we'll be talking about all the other stuff that's been revealed, like Outlaws DLC trailer, the live current Andor stuff that's coming out, some Ahsoka news. There's a lot of stuff to talk about. So hopefully you guys enjoy the conversation tonight. But as always, this is a show that likes to include your guys' feedback as part of the conversation. So send in your thoughts in that chat, and we will bring them up on our live stream in accordance with each topic. This won't be a full Ask Us Anything stream. We're not going to really be taking any questions on things that don't pertain to the news or to Star Wars. Those streams, the Ask Us Anythings, you'll have to wait a few more weeks until we're back after Andor for those streams. But we'll be keeping it focused on the topics. But if you have something you'd like to say on the topics or on all of this news that we have to get through, because we do have to get through it because it is a lot and we only have a couple hours to talk about all this, send us a chat. Super chats are prioritized. If you are not a member of our Star Wars Patreon tiers or YouTube memberships, you can check out our programs. If you're a Rebel tier member or above, you get priority chat access as well. If that is something you'd like to check out our Patreon program. It does have a lot of great, helpful, useful things that go along with our channel, as well as early stuff and exclusive stuff to both programs. So check that out and keep firing away those chats in. It will be first come, first serve if you do not send in a super chat. All right, let's start off with the thing that started off Celebration yesterday, and that was the Mandalorian and Grogu. So we had talked about on our Star Wars Celebration guide. And again, if you want to see what else is going to come out from Star Wars Celebration, I posted an edited down version from our live to a full video for the guide. We had talked about on that guide specifically about how they're kicking off with Mandalorian and Grogu. Usually, kind of Friday kicks off with the biggest thing they have to show or the thing they want to promote the most on that first day. And so, starting off with Mandalorian and Grogu, I think we both expected a trailer to be released publicly. And if you saw the leaked trailer, we can't show it to you, obviously, because we'll get taken down. But if you saw the leaked trailer, you know that it was cut and looked like a trailer they would release online. It wasn't like D23 where it was a lot of footage and not necessarily mixed all together like a theatrical trailer that they would put out. It was a lot of similar things we saw from D23's leaked trailer, but not as raw, a little bit more edited together, more well put together. So I wouldn't be shocked if this doesn't come out at some point here soon. Maybe it comes out next week when Celebration's over. I believe they did something similar with Mandalorian where they released the season 3 trailer a little bit later. Like we saw it ahead of time, and then they had an edited down version that they released when I think maybe the next week or the week after, sometime after Obi-Wan had started, because they were really pushing Obi-Wan. So maybe that's their focus. Maybe they're going to do that. As well as the Maul trailer, it was kind of edited as a trailer that they would actually release. So we're looking forward to seeing if they do that. But for those of you who didn't get to see the leak footage, it was a lot of similar stuff to D23. It starts with Mandalorian. He's breaking into an AT-AT, and there are a bunch of snow troopers getting ready. It's a one take, very cool sequence where they're getting ready and they're armored up and they're putting on even their like the snow masks, that they have, because they got the helmets on, but they're missing the mouth part, and they're all gearing up. It was a really neat shot to have. And then Mando breaks in and shoots them all and takes them all down and takes down an AT-AT. And it's a really, really cool sequence. Definitely elevates the Mandalorian action to a cinematic level. And I thought it's a good way to kind of kick off and show people what they can do with this character and with his skill set and abilities and weapons on the big screen. So that was a cool shot to take start off with. Then the thing that I don't remember from D23, but they definitely focused heavily on in this trailer was Sigourney Weaver. Sigourney Weaver was there. They show her a few times. She's in her New Republic outfit, so she's, confirmed New Republic military. She's like a general, some type of higher up. She also was an ex-fighter pilot, and they showed some behind the scenes footage of her and John Favreau in her jumpsuit. She's wearing the Rebel jumpsuit. And that was really neat. So that was really cool to see, and she has some fun moments with Grogu, and it looked like she's going to be a really interesting and valuable part of this story. But overall, the Mandalorian and Grogu story looks like it's going to be just as we kind of all expected. Mandalorian and Grogu, they're bounty hunters again. The New Republic has hired them to take out some Imperial cells, and Sigourney Weaver is their go between the New Republic and Din Djarin and Grogu himself. So Zeb's going to be involved. Lots of different characters are involved. But there's a lot of really cool action. We saw the AT, what is that? The one from Revenge of the Sith, the one the clones use.
AT ATTE?
Uh, no,
Or
it's
no,
small. It's
AT
the Walker,
RT.
not the ATST, but yeah, it
AT-RT?
might be the ATRT.
Yeah.
He's on that again, so it's a lot of similar stuff that we've seen before, or if you saw the leaked version from D23, you've seen before. But Sonic, when you saw the leaked trailer, when you heard about all the footage that was out there, what were your thoughts on the new stuff we learned from The Mandalorian and Grogu?
I mean, I'm glad I got to see the trailer, at least I know, like, within minutes of people putting it on YouTube, it was being pulled everywhere, so I just found it off of, like, a streamable link and comments and all that, and even that got pulled down, so they're seemingly very, very serious about what they want to have leaked and shown from Celebration, and I get it. You go to Celebration, that is something that you put your money towards or you spend a lot of time, especially when you go internationally to Japan, to Europe, and whatnot, like, it's different than how celebration is done here in the States, no matter how closely similar they want it to be, no matter them, like, dealing with the same animation, movies, TV shows. Culturally, there's different things that they wanna be like, "Hey, you're making the trip out here. Like, enjoy your stay and enjoy
Yeah.
celebration, and you're not gonna be spreading it," right? Well, in this day and age with the internet, that's impossible to believe in, so I'm a fan of what I saw. I think I liked a lot of what Sigourney Weaver kinda brought to the table. Finally, someone that's just not like, "Aw, Grogu's so adorable." It's like, "Alright, buddy. You gotta start, like, acting your age, start being a grown up." And I like that. I think I that's it was already always gonna be a challenge to, like, have Grogu become a character without necessarily having him talk, and I don't think they really wanna let him say more than a sentence or 2 in maybe this movie by the end.
Mhm.
Besides, like, this is the way which he almost seemed like he said in season 3 when he was sitting in Bo-Katan's ship, so I think that's the reason why you need to kinda bring in someone like a Sigourney Weaver's Bishop, kinda hard-nosed, no nonsense, can make a joke here and there, but is, like, very much like an EU coded, like, rebellion leader turned New Republic agent trying to build foundations for the galaxy to, rest and have peace for at least, until the sequels come around, or at least until the next military conflict because, Star Wars is in the name. But, it was pretty nice to see, it was nice to see the expanded stuff from what was there at D23. I was surprised just how much they let the shots linger on how he, like, kinda went through his own kinda hallway sequence.
Mhm.
You can see certain things that I'm like, "Yeah, that's movie budget," like, where he shoots certain things that look like they're CGI, but were really well done CGI, scope of certain things. Um, but, yeah, I think the biggest thing I really pulled from the trailer that I was surprised by was that hey, like, they're kind of, like, serious about, like, if he's gonna be in this position working with the New Republic, he doesn't get to dictate the terms as much as I think season 3 ended and try to imply, like, "I'm gonna do a couple jobs for you, Carson, under the table," like, no, it's like, no, he's fully brought into it, and maybe he starts like that, but I wouldn't be surprised if things like this shot that we see of everyone kind of fighting and punching their way through and him taking down all the stormtroopers and then the AT-AT that finally gets reviewed by Bishop. Maybe it's almost like a cold open of sorts of like, "Alright, like, there's no more hiding it anymore, like, we've been using you, you've done well, but, like, now this is, like, if you're gonna be really helping us, that's too messy, that's not clean," effective, but not clean. So, I'm looking forward to seeing him work within that structure. I think his perspective as an outsider to the New Republic, to what we've already seen in the Mandalorian TV show, will be pretty valuable. Excited, I'm not expecting this to be a mega, like, "Oh, man, like, this is gonna change everything about the galaxy," but I do think it'll definitely establish standards and threads for the TV shows that are still set in this time period to follow or wrap up, give us updates on little things that we're not seeing or a little bit more backstory for maybe even other shows just as tidbits thrown in, with some cameos and all that. But yeah, I think they've done a pretty smart job trying to just aim for this to be a crowd pleaser. If they, start doing it where like Sigourney Weaver's character Bishop isn't more than just like a nod to aliens, like they start like overdoing the '80s like catalog of a lot of these sci-fi actors. And try to bring that into this film, I would be like, okay, like it's nice as a reference. It shouldn't start dictating the story. So that's the one thing I'm just gonna keep my eye out for. But overall, yeah, it does look good. It looks like everything I enjoyed about season 3, season 2, and season 1 all blended together and with a bigger budget. And I hope Grogu really does become like that apprentice because that logo that they showed, they made the Grogu part even bigger than it was from the
Yeah.
D23 announcement. So it's like, okay, you're gonna stick with this name, you're doubling down on it. I don't love that. That's still probably the biggest issue I have with the film in general, it's just the name. But if you're gonna
Yeah.
do that, make him a deuteragonist, right? Like, he should be
Right.
head to head with Din. You might not get, like, his head space or calmer, quieter moments and all that, but, like, look, one of your characters is mostly in a mask, the other can't speak. You both have to be able to, like, express yourself. So, I think Grogu has to grow up and, we've seen him swimming and doing all these little fun things. I think that'll naturally get him in positions where he has to just be more, but now is the time for him to, like, learn as a character or Lucasfilm at least to learn how to convey him as a character for kids to be like, "No, I wanna see him in the sequels 30, 40 years from now instead of just, 'Oh, I love cute baby Yoda.'" Like, this is a turning point for him more than anything. This movie really hinges on that, in my opinion.
Absolutely, and they show him so much more than they have in the past. It's back to the Mandalorian season 3 level of him doing things, and he's actually
Yeah.
has his own agency. So I do think he's gonna go through his own little arc. I mean, it'll probably be more indicative of like a an arc for like R2-D2 or somebody like that or
Yeah.
Chewbacca, but it would be nice to see him actually grow and change, but we do see him doing a lot of stuff. You mentioned the swimming, he has the scene where he takes down the droid and he dismantles it with the Force and then lets the wheel roll by him, so he's still gonna have a lot of those funny moments, but I think Grogu's gonna be a fairly big character in this movie. I mean, obviously, but not just the comedic relief, not just the one that everybody loves because he's cute. He's going to have some big roles. So I thought that was really neat that they showed that in the trailer. They seem to emphasize that. And Din Djarin just still looks really, really cool. I mean, part of me was like at first going, "Oh, why is he not using the dark saber?" Before I thought about the fact that he gave it back to Bo-Katan. But it would have been really cool to see that in live action, see the dark saber in use in
Yeah.
on the big screen. That would have been really sick. But, yeah, I'm sure there'll be plenty more cameos. I'm sure there's gonna be a lot of big things in this movie, but they are focusing it on these characters and like we've been talking about for months and a year, this is going to be a soft reboot of this series. This is going to be the thing that introduces the wider audience to the New Republic era, introduces everybody to what's going on, what's happening here, even if Moff Gideon might be defeated, maybe this is going to introduce us to new Imperials and a new Imperial threat and new rebel heroes. Zeb, you're seeing the fighter pilots are a big part. And I thought that was one of the few things they did really, really well in season 3. Season 3 looked excellent, but they had some great aerial battles, dog
Oh, yeah.
fights, Mandalorian jetpack action. There were some really, really cool sequences with that type of stuff. And so I'm excited to see Starfighter pilots as a big part of this movie because I think that's something that actually has worked very well that they've carried over each season and made better and better. So that's really cool. But then there was one final shot at the end that we definitely have to talk about, and that was our supposed first appearance of Rhoda. And he's fighting in an arena. I mean, it could be somebody else. It does look like the build of like a Crackus, but I assume it's Rhoda because he's been made such a big deal about him being in this movie. And Din Djarin and Grogu, they're sitting there watching with Grogu's eating his popcorn. It's in like an arena, and they're all sitting there enjoying this fight. So I don't know. I wonder what happened to Rhoda. What's going on with him? He's like, is he a gladiator now? Is he just doing this for fun? He, I guess, wanted to follow Gracchus's example and get ripped because he does not look anything like Java. He is big. So I loved seeing that little glimpse. But that was the type of thing I was telling you before we started streaming. Like that was the type of shot. It was a little tag, a little epilogue to the trailer just for a laugh, really, or to tease Road to the Hut. But that's the type of thing that why would you include that in like a promotional trailer you're never going to put out at a con? Like that would be part of the footage you would show in a con if you really wanted people to get excited about Rhoda. That just seemed like something you'd put in the theaters and you'd see it, and that would be your little tag right before the next trailer started. So
Yeah.
I think this is coming out. I think it's coming out sometime soon. And we talked about The Force Awakens is the earliest they've ever marketed a Star Wars movie. They did 13 months early, or at least in the Disney era. They did it 13 months early. I thought this since this is the first Star Wars movie, next year will be 7 years since the last Star Wars movie. It's kind of like The Force Awakens again, where that was 10 years, and technically that was 7 years if you include the theatrical cut of Clone Wars movie. So yeah, this was something that made sense to start marketing early, and I'm a little surprised now that they've promoted it at multiple different cons for multiple different years, and they still haven't released footage publicly, even though it's been done shooting for a while, even though they're seemingly ready to get this out there. It must just be the general strategy around their Star Wars releases. It must be the general strategy around Marvel, because I also thought it was kind of funny that we got a trailer for Fantastic Four yesterday, and then all the Star Wars stuff is coming out too. So it was kind of weird. Like, why would you drop the Fantastic Four trailer on the day all the Star Wars stuff is coming out? That kind of set the tone for me that maybe we weren't getting Mandalorian trailer because it didn't make that much sense to get both in the same day.
Yeah.
But I think this it'll come out at some point, and with Pedro being there, we were talking about that earlier too before we got on stream. Like I thought it was a shock that Pedro was there promoting this movie. He just seems so disassociated with the Mandalorian recently, and not that he's not done press for it, but it hasn't seemed like he's been a face of the Mandalorian since season 1, really. And now he was in Japan promoting this on the same day his Fantastic Four trailer comes out. I wouldn't be shocked if the debut of this trailer publicly is for Fantastic Four, is right in front of Fantastic Four, and really creating that Pedro synergy. We got Last of Us just started last week, so we're entering that Pedro renaissance again. And I think having him out there definitely gives a little bit more to the prestige of this movie because they haven't had him there promoting this yet. And having him and Sigourney Weaver, I mean, those are two pretty big faces to have promoting The Mandalorian and Grogu coming to theaters next year.
Yeah. No, I mean, exciting. It's exciting. There's questions for why, like you said, with this whole release strategy. But uh, yeah, I mean, even when they showed that one at Celebration that we were at for Mando season 3, the eventual release version had so much of the same stuff, and then, like, I was like,
Yeah.
"Oh, it's missing stuff," right? And they put some new stuff to their credit. I figure that's whatever's gonna happen here is gonna be a little bit newer. Maybe that's just like a, "Hey, we got one post-production shot of Rada from the back," because the comics have given us enough of a template to use here. Once we actually get to the trailer, maybe we hear more clearly Jeremy Allen White, which again, what a crazy casting choice to be doing in your career, especially one that's, like, focused on a lot of, like, depressing, sad stories and characters, and then be like, "Yep, I'm gonna play CGI Jabba the Hutt, but buff," right? Like, that's such a choice, and I wouldn't be surprised if they're like, "We're not gonna show that right now," like, maybe they're still finalizing that. I mean, we've known for a long time that The Force Awakens was also, like, very, like, unsure about how they're gonna go with Snoke's design, and then by the time they actually went to Last Jedi, they did change it up again a little bit too there, right? So, yeah, I mean, it's all very interesting to see laid out like this. It's just a matter of like, okay, how do we integrate? just the general audience, appreciation for the New Republic that they've gotten from whatever The Mandalorian has stuck with them. People who are EU fanatics who have kinda wanted to see New Republic story play out, people who are just '80s sci-fi film buffs. It's a very potent formula. It's just a matter of like, okay, are we gonna still make this The Mandalorian and Grogu, or are we just gonna make this an Iron Man 2 where it's trying to set up too many things? Are we gonna make this just like a, oh, abbreviated season 4? Like, justify this movie in every single way. Soft reboot or none, you gotta justify it. I think what they've shown so far is cool. But yeah, I hope that little shot that we got at the end there at Rada means that whatever we get as a first official trailer shows, like, a lot of new stuff. This is just for people who've been watching the D23 leaks saved on their computer somewhere who are like, "Alright, here you go. Here's a slightly more polished version. Here's Sigourney."
Yeah.
Now it's like, okay, whatever gets released, hopefully it's not even like if they really do care about this as a movie, and especially with, like, how they've been proving so far with Fantastic Four that, you know, films, as long as they're planned out, shot on time, have proper previs and structure to go back and all that, can look great in promotion and can be kinda bunched up in promotion, and you're like, "That's all you're gonna talk about," because that's what's been happening to the Fantastic Four trailer. People are like, "Wow, finally we get to see Reed stretch." It's like, "Wow, that thing looks fantastic. Wow, we get to see Jennifer Garner's version of Silver Surfer," right? So it's like, yeah, we're seeing all these things for film that frankly has had what should be by Marvel standards one of the worst ever turnarounds from production to post, but it's looking pretty good so far. So I'm hoping silence here too with Mandalorian Grogu just means like, yeah, they have a plan like that. It's just maybe they're like, we have to let the Marvel brand get into a stronger position this year and then the next year, bam. That's what we're gonna do here. Adjust from what we learned from Fantastic Four, Thunderbolts, Brave New World, and then Daredevil, obviously, and whatever shows like Ironheart that are coming out and see like, okay, what are we gonna do with Star Wars? We tweak a little bit further to make it even better for this franchise that, both have been quieter, both have been kinda slower, right? And Acolyte could have been something that really pushed us to the stratosphere, but it unfortunately hasn't. So this is a chance to do it in a way that, maybe some people who love originality and everything might not love, but this is definitely a good way to get us back to, like, the vibes that were there in early COVID era 2021. I mean, that's a half decade ago. Like, we kinda have to let all this stuff be like, "Oh, like, it's just like a comic book where there's a couple arcs that aren't great, but then, wow, 3 arcs later, that stuff that was not so great built out into something that sets the foundation for this excellent story, and now everything has momentum again." That's how you gotta
Mhm.
look at it. That's why I think Marvel's really confident about what they're doing, and I think that's why Disney is also, like, being very careful and conscious because a lot of the Mandoverse is structured just like the MCU. So, how are you gonna make it work now that you're kind of jumping a flagship show that could have just stayed on that platform and making it movies when we've seen with MCU, there's so much struggle making these TV shows feel worthwhile in the grander narrative that the movies play in. So
Yeah.
there's a lot of waiting and patience, I think, involved in here. I think there's a lot of, like, semantics involved in here. I think there's also this freaking fact, like, hey, how do you make Jeremy Allen White look like a Hutt, but not a Hutt, but also recognizable, maybe not recognize it's gonna be weird, and I think that's why whatever we do get to see, we'll have a lot of new stuff, but probably not. This version probably comes out as, like, TV spots or some sorta, like, Force Awakens, like, black screen trailer that we just kept on dropping, like, 10 frames shot, 10 frames shot. It'll be like this. They'll put it out there maybe on socials, but the real thing, I think, is more in the fall.
Yeah, I mean, that's fair. I think we will get a trailer this year. It'll
Oh,
just
yeah.
be I think Fantastic Four is a good point because I think that'll be at that point, it's like 8 months away, 9 months away. That's a good time to start marketing this movie. Star Wars has been out of theaters for so long. Might as well get it out there and show something similar. But what do you guys think of the Mandalorian stuff? Have you guys been excited about this? I know it seems like most people want to talk about the two other big stories so far, the two big announcements. So we'll go through the comments here real quick about Mandalorian. If you guys want to talk about anything else, let us know in the chat what your thoughts were on all the stuff that came out from Mandalorian, what we were just talking about, what you guys have heard online or gotten to see leaked online. Let's see. One random victory says bet 5 Grogu speaks his first word in this movie. I think that's a pretty good bet to take. I think he will say something. It'll be cute. they're never gonna not make him cute unless they
Yeah,
jump hundreds of years in the future and he's like this wizened Jedi Knight now, but, he's gonna stay cute. It'll just be some type of childish babble, and we'll see we'll see how it goes for this movie.
yeah, yeah.
Let's
I don't know.
see,
I mean, I want cute, but I want cute that makes me go like, "Yeah, that was so cute, but epic." You know, like I need that combination, right? Like so far everything's been cute. I would say there's like a lot of the stuff with the Praetorians that made me go like, "Oh, that's awesome for Grogu," right? How he pulls down panels and like shuts down things. I'm like, "That's cool." But now, like, have him say something, like, I'm not saying you need to have, like, a superhero landing for these characters, right? But if there's a character that needs, like, a moment to just, like, flex, and it's gotta be Grogu, but yeah, how that voice is gonna come out is the next challenge. I don't think they really know what their voice is either for him, right? They didn't know his name really for that 1st season. I mean, we didn't at least, but, they took another season to, like, probably finalize it, bam, same thing with their voice, bam. We'll see what happens, but yeah, I want cute but epic. I want it to be like it doesn't just like I don't want it to be like a meme, like how like Chicken Jockey and everything has been with Minecraft. Like I want it to be like, oh, like everyone can take something away from it that's either cute, epic, or both.
Matasize says, "What's the story for Mando, though? Beyond the cool action scenes and cute ones with Grogu, they need to come back to the idea of Mando abandoning his creed in favor of something else." Well, one thing that can give you hope for that is they did show an image of Pedro in the costume without his helmet. So if he's involved enough to do that, I mean, he could just be there for promo. He absolutely could just be there for promo. I again still find it kind of weird that they would bring him there just for promo and not release any trailer or anything. They really just had them doing interviews and stuff, which is it's such a different strategy, right? Because the movie comes out in 13 months. These interviews are like hype interviews. I mean, he literally, not kidding, guys. I watched his interview. He literally called this the greatest adventure movie of all time, or one of the greatest adventure movies of all time. I don't think he's seen it, like the whole thing. He just knows the script, right? So
Right, right, right.
um, so he's hyping this up. I mean, he's in full press mode, which is kind of crazy because they're pushing the press stuff for this 13 months in advance when really you would think at this point the footage could just do the talking, but they're not releasing the footage. So it's a really different, unique strategy, especially from what we've seen Disney do in the past. I mean, I guess it is kind of similar to what they did last celebration, where they had Daisy Ridley out there hyping up her movie, but we know how that's gone. But at least they've shot this, so yeah, I don't know. It's really a different strategy, but they did show a picture of him in the costume. But yeah, about to say, I mean, we don't really know anything about what the story is other than he's being hired by the New Republic to hunt down Imperials. And I'm assuming as we get closer and closer, I can't think of. We don't really have any other con besides whatever Star Wars Celebration 26 is going to be leading up to this movie because there's no D23 this year. And there will be Comic Con, but they haven't done much for Star Wars at Comic Con in a long time. So maybe Comic Con will be the next time we hear some details around this movie. But there's no real cons or anything coming, so I don't know. I don't know where they're going to do like the big promotional pushes. It might just be press releases or things dropped. Maybe they'll use Disney Plus as a platform to start promoting the movie. But yeah, it's an interesting direction, but yeah, all we know so far is that Din Djarin is hunting down Imperials because Sigourney Weaver hired him to, and she's a Republic higher up. They didn't really give us anything about her backstory or what she does or her actual position. They just said she's high up in the New Republic. She used to be a fighter pilot. And that was it. So,
That's it.
that's kinda all all we know about the movie at this time, and I think we'll get more details, obviously. I mean, we are still 13 months away, over 13 months away from this movie coming out. But, yeah, it's interesting they didn't give us a little bit more considering this was kind of the flagship piece of their Star Wars Celebration. Because I mean, Andor kind of, but I don't really count that because the show comes out in 4 days. So, whatever they could tell us, whatever they're gonna show us there today, it's not gonna really be anything that we either don't already know or aren't gonna find out in a few days.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, it is a it's a tough one to judge. Like I know what you're saying about like the whole Creed, the character arc around that, how it is messy in season 3, and I don't think it's fully resolved yet. I think a season 4 would have resolved it a bit better, but also Pedro kind of becoming this bigger AAA star, like, you're like, "Okay, well, where's he got time to be?" And, like, how he was in season 2 where you do get the most development out of Din Djarin, right? So, yeah, I don't know if this movie is the one to address it. I do think it will be. I think it's just gonna, refine a lot of what season 3 leaves off at because there's nothing to me that shows, like, this being, like, narratively, they're gonna ignore stuff in season 3. It just might not be directly the launch pad from stuff that we kinda expected, this film, if it had come out after season 2, probably would have done, right? Like, there isn't gonna be a direct connection. We live in a different era now. It's not like 2019, 2020 when you thought you could watch a show, watch a movie, watch that movie into the show. It's like, it doesn't work as seamlessly as you think because, frankly, a lot of Disney, has been focused on trying to make their TV shows feel like extended movies instead of like seasons with showrunners and all that. So that's here neither here nor there. But my point being, I think whatever we're gonna see here, we're gonna deal with that. But it's just not gonna be the main narrative. It's just gonna be something that's like a reflection of like whatever narrative they are gonna face, right? Like, okay, we're running into these shadow council members and their fleets and maybe hints of Thrawn and what he's been up to, right? Bam.
Mhm.
Right, and I'm pretty sure at this point with Ezra back, it's public knowledge that, hey, Thrawn's back. That's the only reason I'm back, right? Like, it's gonna be something I think that's gonna be simmering at almost every New Republic military scene, political tribunal, everything. So they're gonna have that for sure. Uh, so would you focus at that, or would you focus on, "Oh, Din Djarin, does he wear the helmet or not?" Like, no, but, like, maybe the missions he goes on to that leads into this bigger plot that he eventually runs into with the AT-ATs, with all the snowtroopers or something, if that is part of a bigger plot or if instead of a cold open, maybe that's where he starts seeing stuff like that. But I do think a lot of it actually hinges on Rada. If you wanna see that happen, I think it does matter because that's a dude that's a son of Jabba the Hutt, the most infamous Hutt of all Hutts, right? Like, he lived for 600, 700 years, like, he went out in a crazy way. For a lot of the original trilogy, he had much of the power of the Outer Rim. We know that stuff with Boba that's gonna be, like, handled, the twin Hutts, like, again, a lot of messiness on Tatooine that also needs to be adjusted for because now you're bringing back a character who the last time we saw was a little Huttlet called Stinky in an animated '08 film, right? Like, are we making a sequel to the Clone Wars movie? No, I don't think so, but we're gonna take that character, put in some cool new things about it, show Hut off in a different way, and then maybe individually Grogu, individually Mando see things about, like, fatherhood, about partnerships, relationships, how environment versus nature really plays a role, and, like, okay, what does that really mean for the beliefs that I've had instilled in my life the whole way? Especially now that they're saying, yes, a Grogu is gonna be a full-fledged apprentice. Well, if you're an apprentice, the master has to really be thinking about the lessons that he's conveying, not just what he's conveying directly, but what he's, like, showing off just by his body, by how he carries himself and all that, and I think that's where you'll see scenes like that come through where, like, it fixes up a lot of the things people don't love us about season 3, blends together the issues with, you know, the children of the Watch versus the people who are on Mandalore, they're probably gonna make references to that, maybe some cameos here and there too. I think that'll all come through, but I think Rada is actually gonna unlock it for them. He might be just a character that they might need for that bigger mission or, like, gets his information to that bigger mission, but if he does stick around or he, like, kinda pops in throughout the film after, like, their initial encounter with him, I could see that being a really big, character foil for both of them.
Mhm. Definitely. And I think when we talked about how this is going to reboot so many things about The Mandalorian, right? And I think this is our first step to. I mean, yeah, it might be kind of disappointing or lackluster for some people. I know Battlestar, you're talking about how underwhelmed you've been in general with the announcements, but I think it could be lackluster, but I think it'll be exciting. And what we have to go into this movie with the expectations that it's kind of going to be Mandalorian season 1 over again, and I'm not talking about in story, but just everything, right? The setup of the world, the setup of the New Republic,
Yeah.
just giving us a little glimpse of everything. They're going to give us our who was our who'd we see? Like Cara Dune was our New Republic kind of character in the first season, and we got some X-wing pilots. We got Trapper Wolf. We got different things throughout season one of different characters connected to the New Republic, but we're going to get the New Republic side, and that's going to introduce that. We're going to get introduce the Imperial Remnant and the threat that uh, they propose to the galaxy and what we're going to see there. And we're going to see the different types of weapons they have and the things they're building and the machinations they have. And I assume at the end, instead of the reveal of Moff Gideon in the last episode, it'll be kind of a reveal of Thrawn. Or it could be a re-reveal of Moff Gideon, or it could be a reveal of another Imperial that they create for the show. If they want to elevate Pelion to main villain status, they could do that. I think it's going to build towards some type of cliffhanger like that. I think we look at this, and I've been saying it for a long time, but I think when you look at this movie, we have to just assume that the Filoni movie is either never going to happen or is a long ways from now. Because I don't think they're done with this era anytime soon. I think this is the era they want to treat as like the new Skywalker saga, and especially when we talk about a Starfighter and what's coming next now, stuff post Rise of Skywalker. I think this is what they're treating as their core Star Wars. This is the thing that they have to fall back on when their experimental things or their new things don't necessarily work. And so they're going to look at this as a way to kind of reboot everything, a soft reboot. It will be a different story. It'll be a different type of lesson that Mando learns, but I don't think it's going to go as into the religion and stuff like that as it did before. That's where you're going to go to the show to see more of the hardcore stuff about Mandalorian lore. I don't think it's going to reintroduce a lot of that. I think he's going to be Boba Fett-esque again. He's going to not really take off his helmet. He's going to have scenes where he takes off his helmet, might reference the show a little bit, but I don't think it's necessarily going to get into that crisis of conscience anymore with this character. I think he's moved into a different realm, and it's going to focus a little bit more on the crisis of the Empire versus the Rebellion and him picking a side and that type of thing. I think that's what you're going to really look at with this character. Might be a little redundant, might be stuff we've kind of seen before, but hopefully they can use the character and his skill set and the mythology around him and build him into somebody who's a true hero instead of somebody who kind of walks that line. And I think they're going to start with him as somebody who walks the line. But in the same vein, when you see Rhoda the Hutt, rumors about Embo being in this, all these underworld connections, I think it's going to be a way for them to reintroduce Boba Fett, reintroduce a lot of the elements that they introduced in the show, but for people who haven't seen the shows, right? And hopefully in those ways, they can fix things that they didn't do well in the show. They can make Boba Fett cooler. They can introduce maybe Ahsoka with a little more personality and flair later. They can make Mandalorian have the gadgets and the all the stuff that he needs to be a full-fledged screen Mandalorian, right? They're I think going to be using this project as something to just slightly improve everything about what they already started on TV, and TV will be the origin ground. Everything else will be what follows after. But yeah, I mean, I think in regards to the fact that this is an underwhelming celebration for some of you, I, I think it's just kind of exactly what I expected. So I'm not underwhelmed, but I can see how it'd be underwhelming, especially because they didn't show any picture or footage. Showing the footage, I think, would change that narrative, right? Like we had all these announcements, but they're so far away geographically. It's in Japan, right? So it's like it's a little bit of a distance between the crowd here and the crowd there. A lot of these announcements are coming out at, if you're on the Pacific coast, like 9, 10, 11, 12, 1 in the morning. If you're on the East Coast, it's coming out all night, midnight, 1 a.m., 2 a.m., 3 a.m. So it's hard to really get ramped up about a lot of this stuff, especially when you can't see it. Because I was watching the live last night that they were streaming for 2, 3 hours. I was letting it play in the background, listening to a lot of the things they had to say. And it was getting me hyped up for the stuff because I got to hear that. But like, most people, it's midnight, it's 1 in the morning on the East Coast. It's hard for everybody to consume that. So it's like it's hard to be a part of the event unless they show some footage. And I'm really surprised they didn't show the footage of the trailer for Mandalorian and Grogu, just because it did look so much more polished than D23. It looked like something that they had ready, that they were prepping. And so I am a little shocked they didn't release that. And then to double that down with the Maul announcement and not release anything for that, Starfighter makes sense because they haven't started shooting. But two projects that they definitely looked like they had more from. Even Tales of the Underworld, they showed the whole first episode of Ventress. They could have released maybe a clip or a new edited trailer or something, but there's really nothing coming out of this celebration other than books, or I mean, pictures and news. And so I find that an interesting choice, especially when it's so far removed from where the majority of their audience is. I mean, watching that, watching the celebration stage, right? Like, yeah, there are Japanese people in the audience, but it is still probably 75% foreigners. So knowing that the audience is that significant from overseas, you would think they would release things coinciding with that to pump up the audience that they're really targeting. I know they're trying to make Star Wars bigger in Japan, but they're not really catering the celebration for Japanese audiences. Then there's some Japanese things that are going on, but they're most of the stuff's in English with Japanese subtitles. Most of the stuff is accessible for a North American audience, and still they're not releasing the footage. So I don't know. Very interesting take. Very interesting decision, but I think we should move on to Starfighter because we're already 40 minutes into our stream. We still haven't talked about majority of the stories. So let's talk about Starfighter. Starfighter, which is the biggest surprise about Star Wars Starfighter, is the name. We didn't know what the name of this project was going to be. We had heard and we reported months ago that Shawn Levy's movie was close, that it was the next thing coming out. Most people were saying it was ready. It was the thing that was coming next. Dawn of the Jedi was getting pushed back. Filoni's movie is wherever that is. And the Ray movie, who knows? But Shawn Levy's movie, which was the one that came after all those, was maybe the next one coming. And I believed it because of the traction around the project in terms of actors. We had heard the rumors about Ryan Gosling. So that made me feel like it was actually close to coming out. But I didn't trust it because it's Lucasfilm, and Taika Waititi's movie's been close before. Ryan Johnson's movies have been close before. Nothing's ever come out. And so getting this announcement, getting a release date, May 28th, 2027, doubling down on that Memorial Day weekend slot, a little over 2 years from now, which is pretty impressive turnaround for a Lucasfilm project recently. So that's pretty exciting. And then the confirmation of Ryan Gosling. It's stuff we speculated on in the past. I was 99% sure they were going to announce the movie and have Shawn Levy there. I was 75% sure they were going to have Ryan Gosling there. But I think this was still a really, really cool announcement. Ryan Gosling definitely on the stream seemed nervous. He seemed very much so like, oh my God, that's a lot of people, a lot of people cheering. Maybe it was the jet lag, maybe he's tired, but he seemed very like mellow compared to Shawn Levy, who was like, this typical Shawn Levy excitement, talking and hyping people up and waving his arms and getting really into it. Ryan Gosling definitely seemed a little more one note, but I'm sure he was tired and trying to keep it together with all these people. But yeah, it was very, very cool moment. I'm excited about this movie. But I think the most exciting thing they announced, besides the release date, is that it takes place 5 years after the rise of Skywalker. So as we enter our post Rise of Skywalker era for the first time, we have this. We possibly have a Rey movie coming. We have a possible Simon Kinberg trilogy coming. What I think is really nice about a movie called Star Wars Starfighter being the thing that kicks that off is this can be our slow reintroduction to Star Wars.
Yeah.
It can get us into the story with something maybe a little fun, something, whether it's New Republic focused or whether it's a whole different Starfighter works for like a mercenary group or something like that, or a pirate group. Who knows? But it can reacquaint us with the galaxy. It can get us a little bit familiar with all the stuff that's going on in terms of politics and factions and who's running what and what's happened to the First Order and the Imperial Remnant and what remains of that, and do they control any planets, and where's the New Republic at, what's the galaxy like, is it been at peace for 5 years, what's the Jedi doing, even if they don't show anything like that, even if it doesn't focus on it. Some of this, just that little bit of information, I think will be really good for setting the stage when we go all in on the next phase of exciting Jedi-led Force stories that are part of that like next wave of Skywalker saga materials. So I think this is a good little first step. I'm excited for it. Kind of similar to Mandalorian Grogu. My expectations are like right in the middle. I think it's going to be a fun movie. I've never been blown away by any of Shawn Levy's movies, but I've enjoyed all of them from when I was a kid watching Night at the Museum in the theaters for the first time to last year watching Deadpool and Wolverine in theaters. So I think he's a great director to tackle this type of tone. I think this will be a really, really fun, entertaining movie that hopefully is good enough to spin off into something that becomes a consistent part of the Star Wars universe.
Yeah, I thought it was pretty interesting to call it Starfighter because all you can think about is, like, the old Jedi Starfighter game, Starfighter back in 2000, like, 2 and 3, those 2 that came out, and then kinda was like a quick here and there series of video games. So I don't mind them reclaiming the name for a movie. I expected it something more, uh wordy? I guess I've never really gotten used to the idea of just, like, a singular subtitle word,
Yeah.
for a Star Wars movie, but it's not a bad thing to try. I mean, Starfighter kinda could be 2 words if they really wanted to, but that's just semantics. Um, yeah, man, I do like that. I do like the title. I think it works for me. I'm very curious about, like, the font and, like, the design that they're 'cause apparently that's gonna play a role into how, like, the world looks like post Episode 9. But this is already lining up with some of my wants, post Episode 9 that, like, things just don't go back to another New Republic, like, this kinda is just like how the EU was after New Jedi Order, everything kind of breaks off into bigger groups instead of big and then tiny subset ones, so I wouldn't be surprised if, like, the first 5 years things aren't as stable. Like, people are like, "No, I don't want the New Republic. Oh, the Resistance is cool, but are they politically sound? We don't have Leia anymore to really give that perspective, plus she's been outed as Vader's daughter, so how much could even her closest advisors be willing to push her up there if she was still alive, right? Rey's not trying to be a leader in that same way because she's gotta deal with training, probably working with Finn, working just be a Jedi in this era. Poe, he might be the closest thing to a leader out here, but it's still more military slanted, right? Finn, is he still gonna have Stormtrooper rebellion, all that? Like, they have a lot of questions that, 9 just doesn't answer, just chooses to wrap up more of, like, the essential Skywalker stuff as opposed to, like, the essential world building stuff, which, I mean, that's just a flaw of the entire trilogy. Comes down to JJ, comes down to not having 3 movies planned out story-wise, comes down to Ryan Johnson taking some bigger swings when he coulda maybe pulled back and let a bit more of an open bridge or a bit of a gap between 7 and 8 so that we wouldn't be, like, questioning as much and be easier to fill things out, just like how the Clone Wars was. So this is good. I'm liking this. If you're gonna have to make the sequel trilogy into a sequel era, if it includes post-sequel, that's fine. Yeah, sure, do that. I'm sure we're gonna also get some connective tissue leading into Episode 7. I can't wait till that one-year gap between 8 and 9 properly gets fleshed out. But yeah, no, I like it. Starfighter, Ryan Gosling. I mean, there's already so many Ken memes in Starfighter, uh, you know, Barbie coloring and all that, and saying I'm enough and all. Um, I'd be kinda surprised if we just keep him in the cockpit. I just think that's a waste of his acting talent. Like, even Poe Dameron came pretty quickly out of that and became a player. If anything, like, even though he should have been more and more in there, it's like they found more and more reasons to pull him out, so if this is something that still can exist in a world that we do get some sort of rogue squadron that's set in the original trilogy, I think that's still a good idea. This could be like almost like our canon Starfighters of Adumar, where you can become like a whole new group, a whole new trilogy here, and they
Yeah.
can flesh that out. And then maybe he's like an older version of like one of the younger of, Rogue Squadron. Maybe he's like timeline-wise, probably no, that doesn't work, but maybe he's, like, the son of, like, Corran Horn or something, like, that
Yeah.
it could be really interesting to just start off with the child as someone that EU fans will be like, "Oh my god, oh, my radar is going off," but, like, movie fans, canon fans probably don't know about, right? So, that gets everyone kinda cued in, that leaves space for Rogue Squadron, allows for connective tissue, and then allows us to see from starfighter pilots' perspectives, like, what it's like to travel around the galaxy. Who's in power? What's happening? Is there still, like, some Sith, trooper rebellions happening? Like, if that Sith/horror film is still kinda happening that, of all people, Tony Gilroy revealed is, like, in production, I'd love it to be like how you and I discussed, like, hey, on Exegol, they have to send in, like, a strike force to, like, clean up, and then they find all these, like, undead, like, r ki almost like the Thrawn Great Mother, revived Night Sisters and Night Brothers and at night troopers and all, but, in a different way, and something a little bit more messy and gorier, and I think that would work, especially because Exegol is the ancient Sith world here, right? So, if that happens, maybe that makes some, like, little, like, throwaway line like, "Oh, man, you hear about that task force and all that stuff that's going on in, like, the Red Cluster?" And it's like, "Okay, yeah," like, other people who are, like, now stepping into this world who are had their entire lives fundamentally changed by the sequels, what do they do about it? And then when you have a sequel character cameo and maybe this film here and there, like, it's like, "Oh, snap," like, it's becoming a universe, it's becoming an era, and I think that's just the best thing about it. When I heard Gosling, I was like, "Ah, they're gonna do something, like, after everything that happens
Mm,
with Thrawn, but, like, maybe, like, 10 or 15 years
yeah.
before episode 7," but this being after episode 9, yes, good, do this, and this is a safe one. I know people don't love Shawn Levy, and I get it. I mean, I like Deadpool and Wolverine, but I'm not gonna call it, like, the best composited film with the best color grade. I think they should have put a lot more Loki stuff than just the aesthetics. I feel like they even downplayed some of that, for sure. And I wish there was more direct MCU stuff instead of just being a Fox love letter, but I can't argue that he finds a way to bring heart and soul to a lot of his characters and the arcs that they go through, and I think that's gonna be excellent for a character who's a character actor like Gosling, who's been able to do so much with so little, with a lot of very stoic-esque characters, and now, more of the common world knows it now, but he's also freaking hilarious, right? So, people know it from Barbie, I know it from Crazy Stupid Love, I know it from especially The Nice Guys, where I feel like that was still to this day his greatest comedic performance. Find something new, blend it together. I think you're right, he is nervous because he's on stage, this is him entering the family. He's already well established, but he's also seen how sometimes it doesn't work out with, like, a lot of the prequel actors who weren't able to deliver the scripts, the dialogue, everything that George wanted. He's kinda doing this weird tweener thing where he's like, "I don't need Star Wars, but if it works out, this could be insane for my career longevity." Right?
Yeah.
So I can see him feel a lot of that stress, plus coming into post sequels, which is not the cleanest. Right? If it was still like, "Oh, I get to interact with Luke," people would not care. They'd be like, "Oh, hell yeah, I get to see Luke, I get to see Ryan Gosling, that's fine." When you have Rey as your biggest Jedi, real no understanding of the state of the galaxy, and it's gonna be standalone with maybe not necessarily a sequel coming its way, maybe more spiritual stuff or TV shows and all that, that might not be up to Gosling's, pay scale, like, you're like, "Oh, okay, this is all or nothing here." So I can see why he's stressed, but glad he's wearing a hat that says, "Never tell me the odds." I think that's really cool. I think that shows that, like, despite the stress, he's gonna do what he can to thrive here. But I will also say, as like a final point, Sean Levy for me has always been fairly impressive with his Stranger Things episodes. He's handled a lot of the best action stuff and a lot of the heavier emotional hitting episodes, especially in season 4 and season 3. So I don't know why movies hasn't necessarily translated 100% the same way until like basically Deadpool and Wolverine, but I'm confident that if he takes another great episode or 2 in Stranger Things season 5 and the combination of everything else that he's been working on, and obviously just the level that you have to bring to Star Wars, I think he can do a really good job and have a little bit more substance than he usually does instead of just like, "Oh, it's a nice popcorn." It'll be something that'll, like, not just because of Star Wars name will have demand, I think if people will be, like, locked in on Ryan Gosling's character. I think they'll be
Mhm.
locked in on, like, the narratives that are completely new that if you wanna follow, great, and they might have connections to sequels eventually, great, but for right now, I'm on this journey to start just like it was, like, Mandalorian season 1 for a lot of people.
Yeah, and 1, 2, we are talking about Starfighter right now. But yeah, I think even though they said it's a one-off movie, it's a standalone movie, I think there's no way that they didn't get Gosling to sign at least a 2 to 3 movie deal, even if they don't plan on extending it. This is the type of actor that you would want to lead the next phase. He can be your next Han Solo in that sense, where he's a non-force sensitive character who could take on that role and really lead it from a different side of the Star Wars galaxy. And I think that makes for a really solid start to this era. You get to see it with the real people, the people who aren't superpowered. I think that will make for a good place for them to continue and start to build out the rest of this world as the Jedi are off doing their own thing, right? So he's the type of character, and if they can develop enough things around this era, that's when the name New Jedi Order starts to make a little more sense for a Rey movie. If it can end up being some type of event movie centered around all these other things that had come out around this timeline. Because the thing we've always done with Star Wars, when we tried doing spin-off movies, when we've done these TV shows, animated or live action, thing we've always done with Star Wars is use the saga as the basis, and then everything else fills in. But this might be the start of their MCU approach, where you do have these standalone movies. You have Ryan Gosling and his Starfighter movie. You have whatever Kinberg's working up. You have a Ray movie. You have these different things, and then they culminate with an episode 10, or they culminate with a big event movie, New Jedi Order, some type of name they use from a book series, right? Just like Marvel does with their movies, where they take comic names and use them to and apply them to the applicable film, even if it's not really based on the comic whatsoever. They did that with Civil War. They did that with Infinity War. They did that with some Age of Ultron. So many different storylines. They're doing that with Secret Wars and Doomsday. So I see Star Wars kind of starting that now. And I think by calling it Starfighter, this is something that even if Ryan Gosling's character didn't continue, even if you didn't continue this particular story, if you did a Star Wars Starfighter, dash Judgment Day or something,
Yeah, yeah,
you can continue to build on the Star Wars Starfighter side of the universe, and then the Starfighter side of the universe can cross over with the new Jedi Order movies, and then can cross over with whatever they do. If you wanted to do a Sith story or a dark side story, if you brought Maul like esque story. I mean, he's dead, obviously, but like, you know what I'm saying? Like George Lucas wanted to do, where he brought Maul and Talon into different story. If you made a new Sith or a new Sith faction, or a new dark side faction, a new Knights of Ren, a new whatever, and you created that part of the timeline, you can then cross them all over, and you can take that approach. So I think this is the smart approach to do if you're doing that. But I think just in general, treating everything as a one-off, as a standalone, is the correct move, because when you do that, then it doesn't leave room for error for lack of story in the future, right? We've seen that a couple times in the last few years with Star Wars. We've seen that a couple times in the last few years with Marvel. When you leave these plot points and people are interested in them, but maybe the movie doesn't make as much as you hoped, or maybe the reception's not as good, then you never answer them. And then people who liked it are frustrated because they never get the answers to the end of their thing they liked. And people who didn't like it are also frustrated because now you've opened up a can of worms and you didn't actually close that can, and you didn't answer those questions that you started, because the reception has canceled your future movies or your future seasons or your future show. So I think always starting these projects, treating them as standalone or treating them as a trilogy is the correct move. Don't say it could be the start of something and then never do the rest of it. That's what I talked about so many times on these streams about Lucasfilm committing. Commit to the movie, make it one story, and then tell more if the opportunity is there, or commit to a trilogy and tell three stories, but don't cut it in half and only tell one story or two stories of that trilogy. So that's what they need to do. And I'm excited about this. I think this could be really cool. Like you mentioned, Corin Horn earlier about his size said something similar. Said, I heard Gosling will be playing Corin Horn, who was canonically on Kenobi as a kid, and train his son or something, although the title references pilot action. Well, Corin Horn, I mean, obviously was a huge pilot and still is, even when he joins the Jedi Order, is mostly notable for his time with Rogue Squadron. So if it was Corin Horn, it would absolutely mean there's pilot action. But Ryan Gosling's age, unless they aged him up, would make no sense for Corin Horn. Corin Horn is already like 9 or 10 in the Obi-Wan show. If they want to keep him Corin Horn, I know he's canonically Corin Horn, but they could wipe that away if they wanted to. If they wanted to use the character of Cornhorn, they could just say, actually, that was a different kid named Cornhorn, and here's the real Cornhorn, and he exists after the Rise of Skywalker. And I think Gosling would actually fit that character pretty well. He not necessarily looks like the character, but he has that vibe. He can definitely play that type of character. He can play any character, but he could play that type of character. So this was if Ryan Gosling's character was Corrin's son, then he'd be Valen Horn, who is also a big part of the new Jedi Order books in the future, and then later in Legacy of the Force and all that. He is part of these stories, friends with Anakin Solo. But Valen is also way too young for this time period, right? Rise of Skywalker takes place 8 or 9 years after what New Jedi Order and Legends when that would take place, so be a little bit older. He'd be like 17, 18, but Ryan Gosling's not can't play 17, 18. So it would be difficult to connect Ryan to the Horn family unless they either aged him way up or made Corrin have a son a lot earlier than he does in, in Legends, where Valen can be a little bit older in the story. But yeah, I mean, that would be cool. What I think one of the big conversations that needs to come out of this is really is this the death of Rogue Squadron? Is this the death of what Patty Jenkins was working on? Because Rogue Squadron was supposed to be in this exact same time period doing a very similar thing. I mean, even though the movie they didn't tell us what this movie's about, titling it Starfighter can make you assume that it's about a fighter pilot. Doesn't mean it's necessarily a New Republic like Rogue Squadron would have been. And maybe they can still tie in together, but this might be the official kind of death, or at least incredible postponement of that Patty Jenkins project.
Yeah, I mean, I don't believe that she's in charge of that. I know she says she's, like, still writing and, like, she's still on it. No, but, I mean, there's absolutely space for this to still happen. I don't think Rogue Squadron has to be nullified. It just might be nullified as a movie franchise, right? It might j and it honestly, it kinda does make more sense when you if you're just looking at the core Rogue Squadron books, they're not flying every single minute. They're doing commando unit work. They're doing infiltration. Raid Squadron obviously does a little bit more of that and a little bit more chaotically and creatively, I think, than Rogue does. But you can kind of combine it, anyways. Like I know that might be sacrilegious to like the EU fanboys of it and all. I love Raid Squadron too. Don't get me wrong, but they also work so hand in hand together, like quite literally in those books that it's like it's more just like shuffling who's a little bit more stable, who's not, and you could simplify it and put them into, like, one ongoing TV show, make 2, 3 seasons, have a Raid Squadron arc, have Starfighters brought up in timeline or something that connects and becomes, like, just kinda how, like, Rogue Squadron is now canonically indebted to Rogue One. You can make it so, like, maybe there's some sort of Starfighters group in the end of the Rogue Squadron show that has been reborn, revived under Gosling's character, or he's like the last young kid or, old head of that pilot group that's like, "You know what? Now more than ever, we have to be not marshals, but freedom fighters with our instead of a blaster and to our side, it's gonna be our X-wings that are scrapped together," right? Like, so I see it. I really do see it. Um, I get the struggle of, like, saying, "Oh, it's gonna be gone." I just don't see how there isn't any sort of Rogue Squadron stuff, especially with Star Wars Squadrons, with New Republic era, with Thrawn conflict, everything being so tied into them. Especially with Shadow Council too, that's really where Rogue Squadron would probably do their work with all these other Imperial warlords. So I'm not gonna give up on that, but I definitely am probably giving up on like the movie level
Yeah.
of that for sure. Um, but I mean, I think another thing we have to also point out for Starfighter, like one thing that people just did not love about the sequels is like there weren't that many new designs. This is a great chance to be like, okay, everything's not gonna be the same because there's no way of everything being standardized with so many different governments, so many different groups, warlords, everything. So it's gonna be great to see like, you know, sure, all the people of the galaxy showed up at Exegol, right? The People's Fleet, as it's called, the Citizens Fleet, or whatever it may be. Now, do they just do that as a one-time thing? Do some of them actually, like, become their own kind of forces with their own aesthetic, their own uniforms and all that? Who knows? And this is a great way to get it started. If it's Starfighter references, like, a specific, like, Starfighter that's brought to life and then leads the way, that could also be really cool. Just new designs. I think that's one thing that I don't think we need to be like prequel where it's, like, almost too disconnected at times, but it should just be different. It should be absolutely different. Add a new flavor. Retroactively be like, "Oh, yeah, this was always around in the sequel era." It just was, like, more of like, "Oh, this is like a Corellian ship that only their, police force would have and not the rest of the resistance and then what they're scrapping up together." You have to justify the design choices and ingrain them in further of the sequels by adding more. If you don't, then I feel like this is just how it is. It's always gonna be some sort of evolution of X, of Y, of Z, or whatever, and it's like, that's not fun. It makes sense, for Leia. It doesn't make sense for a galaxy that's no longer anywhere near unified.
Yeah, no, definitely. And I think that's where they can really kick off and start building out this world is like you were kind of saying. I mean, Rogue Squadron's going to exist. It's always going to exist. It existed in Legends forever, even when the mainstays retired or moved on, right? So it's always going to exist. And that's the great thing about such a simple title like Starfighter. You can do Star Wars Starfighter. And then the second movie can be Star Wars Starfighter, X Wing, or Rogue Squadron, Star Wars Starfighter, Wraith Squadron. You can start building that out. You can do that again. And just like X Wing used to be our title instead of Starfighter, you can just now make Starfighter the title. And then here you go. You've got all your different squadrons, you got your different movies. It can be about different characters, different factions, and people will get it. It'll eventually catch on. And I think that's one of the good ways about keeping your title simple is that you can just continue to build and add and tweak. And if Ryan Gosling doesn't want to come back, he doesn't have to come back. They can get the next person to do a Starfighter movie. But something tells me that I think he would come back if his movie is incredibly beloved and successful and it makes him a lot of money. I'm sure he would come back. So we will see. But yeah, that's Star Wars Starfighter. What do you guys think? Let us know in the comments. We're going to have to move on to Maul Shadow Lord here, but I'll take any last few comments you guys have about Starfighter. Then we'll talk about Maul Shadow Lord. Then we'll take some of your guys' questions about general topics within Celebration, and then we will move back to publishing comics. And right now, for those of you wondering, with Andor, they are showing the first episode exclusively to people there. Surprising, it's not all three. I thought they would do a screening kind of like they did for us when we went to Celebration 22 with Obi-Wan Kenobi, where they said, hey, come back tonight at 5 or 6 or whatever it was after the celebration is over, and you can watch the first few episodes in the auditorium. But I guess that makes sense. And I think one of the positives about this is maybe the episodes are longer because Obi-Wan's episodes were like 40-ish, 45 minutes. Maybe these are like hour-long episodes or close to it, and that's why they can only show one at a time. But regardless, you are going to get soon here your first reactions to Andor Season Two's Episode 1 because they are currently screening it for people at Celebration. So that's pretty cool. But let's move on to Maul Shadow Lord because that was the, to be honest, biggest reveal, in my opinion, of this celebration because we had already heard so many rumors around Ryan Gosling. We had already heard so many rumors about Shawn Levy's movie. Wasn't surprised at all they announced those. And I wasn't surprised at all they announced a new show from Star Wars Animation. I'm just surprised it's a Darth Maul show, both in a good way and a little disappointed way. I'd set myself up to be very, very excited for this Dark Time show if they ever announced it, and that's not going to happen anytime soon. But if they had to pick one character to follow again, I'd prefer them to do, especially in these eras, at least have one show that really covers the breadth of the era, because I think that's very beneficial. It's one of the reasons Clone Wars is so beloved is because it covers as many things as possible. It's so many different characters. It creates so many different factions and so many different groups of people that people have fallen in love with over the years. So I think it would be very beneficial to have one of those shows running. But you could have a show concurrently, like The Bad Batch, and like we're getting with Maul Shadow Lord, that's more focused, more character specific. And if they were going to pick a character to have a show about, there aren't too many other ones in the Dark Times with the Clone Wars animation style that I'd want more than Maul. I think that's awesome. Sam Witwer was there. It's a really cool announcement. But Maul Shadow Lord is coming next year. We are getting Maul Shadow Lord. They didn't say when, so that's a little bit of a like, leaving it open ended. I'm assuming it'll probably end up being summerish, maybe a May the 4th first episode drop like they did with Bad Batch, maybe a little later in the year if they didn't give a date. But 2026 is when it is coming. It is Clone Wars animation style, and it looks really, really cool. So there was a leaked trailer for this as well. I believe it's been taken down many times over now as also, but looks great. And it does seem like it's continuing pretty close to after the Clone Wars when that ends, because of for the spoilers for those of you who haven't watched Rebels, we get to see Maul meet his comeuppance in that show. So we know the furthest he can go is about 2 BBY, 2 to 1 BBY, but that means he can live majority of the dark times. When the rebels come in contact with him, it's about 3 BBY, between 4 and 3 BBY, and he is the old master. He's been left stranded on Malachor, and he is decrepit and kind of, seemingly out of the game for a while. But we see him in 10 BBY in Solo Star Wars story, actively running Crimson Dawn. So Maul's had a complicated life, and we don't really know what happens to him between when we last see him in Clone Wars and when we pick up with him in the Solo movie. And this looks like it's going to be filling those gaps. And the reason it looks like it's so close to Clone Wars is the trailer heavily features a lot of the Mandalorians that were working for him when he was running Mandalore, including Rook Cast and some of the other ones that you see in season 7 of the Clone Wars. So they are going to be a prominent part of the show. So it seemingly takes place shortly after, when they're still, pledging their allegiance to Darth Maul himself. Animation looks gorgeous. There are so many great shots, but the big one everybody's been talking about is the fact that he frees a red-skinned Twi'lek woman and seemingly training her in the ways of the dark side of the Force to be his next Savage, his next apprentice. And as most of us assume, that it is Darth Talon. And that is both cool and not cool. I mean, Darth Talon, a very beloved character in Star Wars for a few reasons, not necessarily all indicative of storytelling, but she is somebody who's iconic. And I think using an iconic character is never a bad thing. I think it's also a nice little prop up to some things that Lucas was working on, whether it was the Maul and Talon video game that they were working on in this similar era. Before that got scrapped, there was also the original idea that Lucas has thrown out there about having Maul and Talon be his main villains of his sequel trilogy originally, when he passed it off to Disney. So having Maul finally team up with Talon in a story in Star Wars, just in either continuity, I think is a cool little touch, because it does call back to things Lucas wanted to do, even if it never really made sense, because Talon was a part of stories that took place over 100 years after A New Hope. So it never really made sense for the timeline. But since Talon's not a part of canon, you can do whatever you want with her. And bringing her into the story, definitely in a more PG outfit, which is going to upset some fans. But she looks cool, and I think they're going to do justice for this character and really make us, fall in love with her as a Sith figure, as a dark side user, and not for the reasons that she's been people's favorite Sith for a long time. So I think this looks awesome. I think it's great surprise announcement, a really cool series. Wondering how many seasons it'll go. Hopefully another 2 or 3 like Bad Batch did, and I'm very much so looking forward to Maul Shadow Lord.
Yeah, I mean, a lot covered there. It's definitely a show I wasn't expecting. I do feel sorry on your behalf that we're not getting this dark time show, but perhaps what they're trying to do is more of these smaller shows that all are like longer arcs, I guess, right? Um, I don't really see a story in where you could do 3, 4, 5 seasons with him. I think especially with this title, I think this is gonna be very specifically focused on, like, his first real ventures, that will lead it from the Shadow Collective into Crimson Dawn. I don't really see a space for him to, like, use the show to build out stuff, especially if we do have a Talon, right? Like, I know all the Talon fanboys are gonna be so upset that she's pink and wearing clothes or something. This is gonna be probably more narratively interesting. I don't think anyone ever looked at Savage Opress when he was first introduced as anything more than like, "Okay, he's just gonna be another, Star Wars's version generic version of another character," right? And he did lose potential, I'm not gonna deny that in my mind, but I do think that relationship that he has with Maul is fascinating, and it's so interesting to see all the way up to leading to his death, what happens and how we feel about that, right? Like, what he's become, what he's sacrificed, and all that, so I don't see this sort of Sisyphus character that is Maul putting this character that may or may not be Talon onto a good path that's gonna have a lot of lifespan to it. I don't think we're gonna ever have the George Lucas sequel era of having Talon as, like, the villain and be apprenticed by a still alive Maul or whatever, like, that's not happening, but I think we could take a lot of those elements, make that come out here. maybe dominate the first 5 years, and she could still live past this show. I think
Mhm.
that she'd be a fun character to live past, maybe be tied to stuff like Acolytes of the Beyond or Sith Eternal or something, you know? So, she doesn't you don't have to have a specific thing, you can still be out there, and he is the ultimate wild card, so, yeah, would not mind it, really would not mind it. Um but yeah, I mean, if they're gonna focus on all that, I only really see, like, 3 seasons max for a show like this, and if Bad Batch is the new formula for using the Clone Wars style animation, I think that's fine. I don't mind if the next show that then gets released is a patch show and maybe they do make some of these more concurrent based on the success of Shadow Lord and being like, "Okay, yeah, we can kinda, like, stagger these. This is all taking place at the same time. Um, one in the fall, one in the spring. Bam, and now you have, like, these dark time show arcs that we wanted. They actually get a bit more due, but they probably have less variety than we'd hope. But yeah, I'm excited. I can't say I'm not never not excited for animation. They're always where some of the richest storytelling happens anyhow. So yeah, I'm gonna be pretty pleased, I feel like, with the general direction of this. It's not a choice I would have made, but the more I've sat on it, I'm like, I do like just Maul not, like, withering away and then somehow becoming in power. I do like this idea that he's only gonna be more chaotic, especially after his comeuppance with Ahsoka and everything, like, and
Right.
this is a great way to make the Lady Tana line work. I know it happens in the Ahsoka novel, it doesn't really make sense if you've mostly retconned that, right, with the Order 66 out and Siege of Mandalore arcs, but maybe they have another encounter or something that allows for a little bit more of that connected bridge and build off of everything with Siege, so excited, excited. I am really hoping that Witwer gets to really unleash here because now this is not just Maul as a villain in an arc. This is Maul leading the show, and he's not done that ever. So I think that if this is a big success, I think we're gonna suddenly see stuff like the Spiritual Solitude sequel, Kira's being trained by Maul. I think a lot of that stuff gets pushed more to the forefront.
I hope so. I hope it connects to a bunch of different things. I mean, that's my one worry is that this is a 1 or 2 season show when Maul has a life that to me actually can span 5, 6 seasons. I mean, you can cover so many different years. It's just a matter of how much they want to skip in time and how they're going to do that across seasons. Because if they're just telling the immediate aftermath of the Clone Wars and Revenge of the Sith on Maul and what happens there, and then they bridge it into the true formation of Crimson Dawn, then I don't see as much story. But if you start with that, you start with like Maul recollecting himself, finding his new apprentice, then turn it into his formation of Crimson Dawn, then turn it into how he starts to gain a stranglehold over a lot of the underworld and start doing these underworld wars. And I mean, I don't think it's a coincidence that you announce a Maul show right on the back of Tales from the Underworld because you can bring in Cad Bane, a part of this again. You can bring Ventress in, a part of this again. We'll talk a little bit about Tales from the Underworld a little later because there were some, they showed the first episode and there were some reveals there as well. But tying all of that together, I think can create a really interesting narrative for Maul, a narrative where he can truly drive the underworld like they were setting him up to do, but we never actually got to see it realized. And I would love it to end with his stranding on Malachor. Like, I think that would be a really cool place for them to go if they went 5, 6, 7 seasons. And that's where, to me, like, maybe there's not enough story for 16 episodes, 7 seasons, each season having 16 episodes. And that's where, to me, like, a Dark Times show would have allowed you to do a 4 episode Maul arc. And then a year later in season 2, you did another 4 episode Maul arc showing the formation of Crimson Dawn. And then you did another Maul arc later in that season, showing how a war with Jabba, all these different things they could have done, but you could have spread it out and not had to time jump necessarily in the same season. You could have had each season of that show kind of connect to the specific year that they were showing. But they're not doing that. But one of the only other things that I don't love about this, but I'll get over it pretty fast, is the fact that I want to get to like the middle of the dark times, right? Like we have so many things that are in 10, 9, 5, 4, up to A New Hope, BBY, and we have now Bad Batch that takes place in like 1918 BBY. We have this now taking place in 1918 BBY. Like, I want to get into that like 16, 15, 14 BBY. I really want to like build up to what we have seen so consistently from something like Solo, from something like Obi-Wan, from Rebels. Like, I want to build up to that. And it just seems like we keep either going Revenge of the Sith or close to A New Hope. We don't really ever go middle. And I'm just ready to like work our way towards that and start connecting things because we have so much open time. And maybe that's the point. Maybe they want to keep the time open so they can continue to tell these stories forever. They don't have to end them. But I would really love these things to actually build not just individually as a show, but build in the hierarchy of Star Wars and start to really connect and solidify lore because that's what Clone Wars did so well is it meandered for 7 seasons and told a lot of different stories, but when it got time to do so, it connected and bridged Revenge of the Sith and Attack of the Clones, and that's the point of the show. That's why it was created, and so hopefully we start to get some of these shows that actually solidify and bridge all the other stuff we've seen and connect Revenge of the Sith and A New Hope firmly, and not just a few years before A New Hope, a few years after Revenge of the Sith. And we'll talk about in publishing as well. Master of Evil is confirmed to now be basically a canon version of Dark Lord: The Rise of Darth Vader. It's also taking place right near Revenge of the Sith, so it's like just can't like escape the post 1 to 2 years after Revenge of the Sith or the pre 1 to 2 years before A New Hope. That's all right. I mean, this looks awesome, and I'm very excited for more Maul. I'm happy with anything Maul. I think it's awesome to go back to that. And as great as the clones are, my favorite side of Star Wars will always be Jedi and Sith. And so going back to this and having a little bit of a mix of underworld bounty hunter chaos with some Mandalorian story and Sith stuff in the dark side. I think that's a really great place to go. So, really excited for that series. A lot of you guys seem to be excited about it as well. Badasai says, "Hey guys, good to see you. And what percentage is the probability for a duel between Maul and Vader in the new Maul show?" I say 70%. Maul seems to know Vader and Rebels. I don't know if I'd go 70% in this show unless it goes that many seasons, because from what we kind of feel in Rebels, it seems like Vader might be the one that, left him down there or beat him so bad that he ended up on Malachor. I'd love to be Vader to be Maul's comeuppance, be part of Maul's comeuppance. So if he is, and this show does take place close to Revenge of the Sith, I don't see it really happening. But it would be really cool, and that Vader asset in Clone Wars animation style is still sitting there, and they haven't used him again. I would love to see Vader pop up, but we'll see. We'll see how long this show lasts.
Yeah, I mean, oh, that's a tough one. I mean, I think Vader does absolutely at some point destroy him. I'm not saying in the same way that we see in like Infinity's version, kind of like oh the or not Infinity, some comic where it's like, oh, how could you
I
like
think it was
ha-
Tails, yeah.
it was Tails, right? Like, oh, how could you like how what do you hate more than me? It's like myself. I'm like, okay. I mean, that's a pretty good line. I think that's probably one of the more subtle things that the EU has done ever in comics. Sometimes they always try to go for some crazy dialogue with him, even though the stories are kind of centered around Deus Ex Machina with new fan service character that's somehow almost taking down Vader for like the 10th time. But I did like that version because I was like, okay, like that's still focusing on the strengths and the weaknesses of both characters. Um, this would just replace the Clone Maul with Maul. He has to be trapped away there. I don't know if it's Vader who necessarily does it. I do like the idea that Maul traps himself, right? Like it's finally his own unraveling his own doom, and then he because of some misguided crazy belief in himself, he's like, I'm not gonna ever get screwed over here. Like something will come through, and then the rebels happens. But I wouldn't be shocked if Vader kinda has, like, a Rebels-esque arc where he's just, "Nope, I'm gonna hunt down this specific character. That's my priority now, everything else kinda has to fall in line with that." So, if he tracks him down to Malachor, if they have a couple skirmishes leading into that, awesome. I really would like that, but is that something I see happening in this show? No. If they didn't have the sort of Talon character, maybe, but now it's like, okay, this is a priority. Even if it doesn't work out, it's still gonna take a big chunk of his early Dark Times era.
Yeah. Yeah, and I still don't really see him coming in contact with Vader prior to, at least in a significant way, prior to the formation of Crimson Dawn, and we know Crimson Dawn is at its peak in 10 BBY. So we still have a lot of time to get there. We don't know exactly when this show takes place. They haven't confirmed it, but just from the footage, just the fact that Rookcast seems to be a big part of the show, all of that stuff, it looks like this show is going to be 19, 18, 17 BBY around there. So I think we have about 10 years of time for Maul to build up his empire, basically. And even though Palpatine lets the underworld kind of run wild, Battleside says they said 1 year after Revenge of the Sith. Okay, then yeah, then it's 18 BBY. It's the same timeline as Clone Wars. Or I mean, Bad Batch. So we still have 10 years for Maul to build up his empire, and then yet another 5 years for Maul, or more, 6, 7 years before Maul to end up on Malachor. So there's a significant chunk of time there where he's doing other things. Palpatine likes to let the underworld kind of run itself. He uses that fear of crime to kind of justify some of his dictatorial rules, and so the Empire serving as a combatant force against the underworld is something that's to Palpatine's benefit. So he kind of always lets it go, and that's one of the reasons why you see so much underworld stuff in this period as well, just the upheaval of the government as well. But I don't see him attacking Maul. Like, he challenges Maul when Savage is there, which might be an interesting thing now if Maul's taking on a new apprentice with Talon. Maybe that makes Palpatine or Vader want to come after him, or Talon, and maybe you could see Vader kill Talon or something in this show, because he wants Ezra to be his new apprentice in Rebels as well. So like, what happened to Talon there? Maybe Talon's the one that betrayed him and left him down there for dead, and she's now out there at large somewhere. So it'll be interesting to see where they take Maul in this. But I just think if you're ever going to connect it to Solo, if you're ever going to do a Solo 2, if you're ever going to tie in the plot points of Solo to a TV show, or even to this TV show or another animated show, Maul's got to be at his peak at Solo. He can't be beaten down or weak. And at that point, even though you have an ex Sith Lord running one of the major criminal empires in the galaxy, Palpatine can't really touch him because he's so powerful at that point. Palpatine's not going after him. So it'll be interesting to see how he gets there. I just don't see, he might come in contact with Vader. I don't discount that, but he's not going to lose to Vader yet. He's not going to get destroyed by Vader. Not in this show. I just don't think that's going to happen yet. But thank you for that question. Let's see. Do we have any other ones about Maul specifically? Anthony, YouTube fan, says Maul versus Vader. I doubt it. George Lucas seemed adamant that the two would never encounter each other. Plus, if he did encounter him, he'd be dead before Star Wars Rebels. He probably would be, but he is not. So we can't, if he does encounter Vader, he wouldn't die. Let's see. Batasai says, I mean, if it's to tie into the novel. Oh wait, okay. That's next question. Can you specify when Lucas said that? I didn't know. Vader certainly would be lethal for Maul in a potential duel. Maul would barely escape. And the syndicate wouldn't be erased. Yep, kind of like what we're saying. And then Anthony, YouTube fan, says, I'd love to see more. Okay, wait, no, that will be something else. Let's see. Brandon Tran says, could the new Maul show mean there could be some parts of Son of Dathomir comic like Count Dooku and Sidious versus Maul and Mother Talzin as flashbacks? Yeah, as flashbacks, anything's possible, especially if he goes back to Dathomir. But I don't see like the comic directly being adapted. And we'll talk a little bit more about the animation panel in a few minutes, but there's always a possibility that these things could be reanimated, because Son of Dathomir was supposed to be an animated arc, but I don't see it coming back. I think that would be one that would be a little further away from coming back at some point, but definitely some flashbacks would be cool. I'd love to see Mother Talzin again as well in the ghost form.
I mean, anything that furthers the live action, the TV shows and stuff that have been drawing again from the animation, I feel like it's just gonna be a circular thing. It's like, okay, we got Shadow Lord. What are some things that the Great Mothers might want to deal with that might make most sense for them? in Ahsoka season 2 if we introduce some things, or if they straight up bring up Talzin. Honestly, she's a character I want to continue in any way possible. The whole idea of the arcane, of, like, things going crazy and messed up, like, that's the biggest selling point for me of the Dathomiri Night Sisters, like, that they can't necessarily just be done, right? There's always something a little bit more, right? So, if these original types are like, "No, we're gonna use it for these Night Brothers," I'd love to see what the Dathomirians post Talzin are doing. Again, we need to see more of the Witch Mountain clan too, right? So they've been brought back in Tales of the Empire. Like, we're feeding little different things here. So I wouldn't be surprised if we're gonna get some cool things with the Dathomirians. Um, but adaptations of stuff that was canceled or left behind or already kind of started done with Clone Wars Legacy and all that, no, I mean, I'm still really frustrated that Crystal Crisis has not been adapted in any way to at least get the fireplace scene, um, into some canon release, because that's so crucial for those characters, and like we talked about on a previous stream, I think the last 2 seasons, like, by necessity, there isn't a lot about Anakin and Obi-Wan's development anymore, even though arguably everything post Ahsoka should be where you develop the Revenge of the Sith characterization, so it's like, ah, man, why can't we get that? Anyways, that tangent besides, yeah, I don't really see the show being adaptations. I think this is gonna be more like ideas and concepts that George had that now make sense for the future grander plans of all these standalone shows or stuff that are connected to different eras.
Battlestar says, by the way, the Twi'lek in the trailer seems to be pink instead of red. If it's Talon, I hope they go with no doubt red. Although, for all intents and purposes, no matter the color, this Twilight girl will be canon Talon. Yeah, she's going to be canon Talon. From the rip I see, she looks red to me, even if it's not a super saturated red like we see in the comics, even if it's not a really dark, pure red. She looks red to me compared to the pink Twi'leks we see in Clone Wars. So, I don't know what if there's another picture out there or something that I'm not seeing, but from the, bootleg version I've watched, she looks red to me. But, but I think she will be telling. We'll see what she looks like when she gets her tattoos and everything as well. Maybe she'll, look a little bit she'll get like a dark enhancement to her, a red increasement later on.
Yeah. Yeah, I wouldn't be surprised if they're gonna keep what is most I don't know. Actually, I don't even really care. I think that's just the name that matters. It does look a little bit more pink in the trailer that I saw, but again, lighting, camera effects, everyone's flash and all that. Well, not flash, obviously, because 'cause they're trying to be hidden about it. Um, yeah, I don't know. There's what's if I asked someone, "What's Darth Talon's most, like, describable feature?" It'd be, like, the lack thereof of anything that she wears, right? Like, yes, you could say that's the second most thing is, like, red with tattoos. But again, how different is that from Maul? I don't know if it makes sense for that because again, like, huge thing about the legacy comics in general is, like, they straight up said, like, "This is us, like, remixing concepts and characters and archetypes, and then presenting a whole new era, dealing with all the consequences of stuff that you've been seeing in the EU plus more," right? So Talon is more than likely just like, "Hey, what if Maul was a red Twi'lek that was into, like, more BDSM and fetishes?" Because all of the ones Sith are, they're just trying to hurt themselves. They're trying to, like, cut off their arms and grow their lightsabers. They're, like, metal and edgy and goth and everything combined, right? So, yeah, I mean, I think for me, if I see the tattoos, I think that's good enough. I don't really care about the skin color. I think especially in an era now where if you're gonna directly have these characters match with each other, I wouldn't be surprised, especially with how Maul has developed versus how George Lucas probably would have developed Maul and Talon together. It's very formally gonna be master and apprentice. I think if we had gone with, like, more the George Lucas version, where they might have been more like dark lovers too, to some degree, and they looked like each other, I think that works there. In this sort of scenario, like, if you run into a room and that gets ambushed and destroyed and chopped up by 2 red-skinned aliens with spikes and tattoos, it would be pretty identifiable, especially if they're in any close proximity to each other. So I'm hoping it's just they make nods to that character design as necessary, but make it richer. I mean, the Maul that we have, especially with the end of the Clone Wars up to Rebels, like, wow, he's on a different scale of, like, just how much that he doesn't give up. You have to give him credit there, but he's so messed
Yeah,
up in how many different ventures he goes through and how much of a mess he really is balancing, right? There's nothing simple about him anymore, and I think if we had gone with the George Lucas version with Talon, it would have been very Episode 1-esque, but now that we've developed all this stuff, Talon, by definition, can be just an entirely new character, not even a composite, just like, "Hey, let's maybe actually develop the character in this era and what that would have looked like with George's idea as, like, the starting block instead of Legacy's depiction."
right. And I think they're absolutely going to do that. I mean, the more I think about, the more I'm starting to fall in love with the idea that Talon is the one who ends up beating Maul and leaving him down there in Malachor, because I think they're going to use this character in the future. Now, something's going to happen to her. She's going to disappear. Obviously, she's not in the original trilogy. She's not with Maul and Rebels, so something's going to happen. We'll see if it's in this show. But yeah, I think that's going to be really cool. Yeah, I think I want her to be a little more red. I like the, like, really dark, striking red that you see in the comics, but she also is not in her full form yet, right? Like, she's young in this trailer too. So maybe she gets more red the older she gets. Maybe she once she gets the tattoos, she has a different, tone to her skin. Anything's possible, but I think it is going to be Talon for sure. Let's see. Any more comments here on Maul before we move on to talking about the rest of the animation panel? Because there's some other good things to talk about there. We're going to talk about animation, and then we're going to talk about publishing, and then we'll continue to take your guys' questions throughout the rest of the stream. Let's see. Doesn't look like Dope Your Button said it would make sense for Maul to battle Vader. And Maul mentions Vader in Rebel Season 2. Am I right? And then, yes, there's some conversation about that. But yeah, okay, let's move on to the rest of the animation panel, because there were a few other things that happened at animation. One is Young Jedi Adventures got confirmed for Season 3. I know all of you are huge Young Jedi Adventures fans, so you're probably jumping up and down about that one. We're not going to go into it too much here, but it is coming for Season 3. And the other big thing they did in animation, besides telling some great stories about the history behind certain projects, and Dave Filoni had some great tidbits about working with George Lucas, and there were a couple times he got kind of emotional talking about it, which was pretty cool to see. We got to hear more from his producer, Athena Portillo, who's on all these projects, and it was nice hearing from her about some of these things and her history with Dave Filoni. But they did eventually, cut the feed for the private stuff for the panel, and that included the Maul Shadow Lord announcement, and they also showed the full first episode of Tales of the Underworld, starting with Ventress's arc. So we got that. The episode, spoilers for people who don't want to know anything about it. So if you don't want to know anything about the first episode of Tales of the Underworld, then come back in 5 minutes or so. We're going to talk about it here for a few minutes, so spoiler alert, just so you've been warned. But anyway, it shows and starts with Ventress getting resurrected, which is, I think, something we all theorized from the poster, from some of the stuff we saw in the trailer. And so it does directly connect to Dark Disciple. Now, a lot of people are going to probably come at me because of my trailer reaction, where I said I'm not that excited about this. And again, I'll reiterate what I said, is that until I see a meaningful story with the Asajj Ventress, I don't care how she gets resurrected. I'm not that excited about it until I see a really meaningful story that makes me say, yeah, that was worth resurrecting her for. So anyway, I'm not upset she got resurrected, but I'm still hesitant on seeing the overall story. So anyway, to clarify that, then after it shows Ventress moving into ultimately the path we see from Obi-Wan Kenobi. So connections there. Again, we all speculated about that, considering she's with this Jedi Padawan in the trailer. And so it'll be exciting to see how they connect the path to what Ventress's story is. And if we do eventually get that Ventress Quinlan show or spinoff, if they are going character centric shows like a Mole, maybe they can do two at a time and give us a Ventress Quinlan show next. And that might actually come soon. But yeah, that's most of the details from the first episode. I didn't really see anywhere if people said how long it was. I'm assuming the 12 to 15-minute range because that's what those other ones have been. And the Kiners are confirmed to score the entire show as well via the credits. So that's from Tales of the Underworld. Some big, obviously, reveals. I'm glad it is starting with that because it is nice to at least clarify how that happens. Hopefully, it's in an in-depth kind of look at it, and like we get to see what the process is and how she how she gets resurrected, what's the immediate reaction to that, how it all kind of works. I'm excited to see all of that come to a head here, and I'm excited to see the path back. I think that's something that the Obi-Wan show had a lot of extraneous plot lines that didn't really need to be in the show, but that was one that was kind of exciting for the future of what they had going with the Jedi during the dark times because there's been so many Jedi who have survived. It's nice to kind of have this group of people who are looking out for them and keeping them safe and kind of helping them survive. So it's not just every Jedi is able to hide and protect themselves from the Empire and the Inquisitors. Gives a little bit more credence to why the Jedi are able to exist for so long, despite all these forces hunting them down. So pretty cool stuff. Excited to see it in person when it comes out in a couple weeks, but looking forward to Tales from the Underworld nonetheless.
Yeah, I mean, all that previous stuff does sound really cool. I'm glad they're getting very explicit that Asajj gets resurrected, right? Like, good. I'm glad. I was always a little nervous with what their choice was in Bad Batch season 3, but as soon as that trailer came out, we also had the whole article from Brad Robbie like, no, no, like we're honoring it. Dark Disciple is not being erased. It's like, okay, well, show me that you're honoring it, right? Like that's the next step. And yeah, I do agree with you, Liam. I need to see a reason for her to live, right? I think she had a really potent ending, a very poignant one. Now is the question is like, okay, well, what are you gonna do with it that you've undone it, right? And what are the repercussions for her, right? Like, is this something that like is only like, oh, you have one final task to complete. Until you complete that, you'll live. Until then, otherwise you'll die, like, once you finish it or something. Like, I wanna see it be different than just like, "Oh, she's basically a clone," or basically that's just fine and that's it, right? So, I want that, yeah, and I don't know what how the Underworld series is gonna turn out. I just have better feelings about it than Empire, just with the 2
Yeah.
characters and just with lower stakes in general, but yeah, I'm happy to see what's gonna go on with these characters moving forward. I'm happy to see animation seems to be thriving. I wish they'd announced a Japanese TV show, an anime full blown, but it doesn't really seem like they're doing that. They've been doing a lot of stuff with like manga adaptations and stuff like that, but I guess they're still not ready. I think maybe Vision season 3 is holding things back. Maybe they announce the next celebration or something.
Yeah, hopefully, I would love to see that at some point someday. And we still do have the Visions panel on Sunday, so there's still a slim possibility if it is outside of Lucasfilm Animation, because that panel was so specifically focused on the efforts and the growth and the changes around Lucasfilm Animation specifically. So if it is outsourced, which I think they should outsource. Why not? Like you have so many animation divisions within the Walt Disney Company. Why not have Disney make something? Why not have Pixar make something? Why not have all these other companies make something Star Wars? They absolutely could do it. But not to get on another rant about animation, but it's just like Star Wars animation has been so successful in its storytelling. It's been so good and such high quality that to me, if a studio that makes one thing, Star Wars, really should have more than like one project at a time going. And I think they can do it. I think they can. I know Lucasfilm Animation is a smaller animation department than a lot of other big animation companies have. But if you wanted to make animation a priority, you could have high quality animated feature films. You could have high quality animated special presentations. You could have high quality animated shows and not just have to do one thing at a time. And so I would love to see them really put animation as a priority in the future. We'll see how Maul Shadow Lord does. It's definitely targeting a much wider audience than the Bad Batch was. I don't like as our first Disney Plus animated show. The Bad Batch was always a weird one because it's like such a specific show. You're
Yeah.
targeting one, people who have watched the Clone Wars, two, people who have watched specifically Clone Wars season 7, and then three people who are just generally interested in Star Wars stuff, because outside of that, Bad Batch is not well known by anybody, and unless you watched all 7 seasons of the Clone Wars or got into season 7 of the Clone Wars, you have no idea who these people are. So they always had that problem of like trying to populate it with characters that we've seen before, so that when you watch the trailer, you can be like, "Oh my god, there's Ventress," or "Oh my god, there's Scorch," or "There's Cody," or "There's Rex," or "There's Tarkin." You had these characters you had to populate it with because the Bad Batch themselves couldn't sell a show. And so when you have Maul, we'll see if the animation numbers get closer to Clone Wars season 7 level, get closer to what peak Star Wars animation numbers could get to when you have a show that's actually centered around characters that people know and love and have been invested in for years. So I think that's an exciting thing about that show, but I'm really hoping they do bring anime in at some point. I think outsourcing, especially if it's a different style, outsourcing is not a problem. Um, and just let them, like I said with comics in the past, like I've said with other things in the past, like if you are worried about controlling the narrative, then give them either an Elseworld story, like a make an anime season that's Visions esque where it doesn't exist in continuity, so it can be its own thing and use Star Wars as the trappings of Star Wars to create a show, or send it far in the future or send it far in the past. Let them go wild with it and use Star Wars as a piece to make things. And I think that would be the right way to do it because I feel like sometimes with canon and with the story group and stuff like that, Lucasfilm wants such strict control over everything to control the narrative and not to have creative differences that it causes a lot of these problems within the stories that they're trying to tell because it's hard to go outside of that. Especially with animation, you can absolutely do some type of out of continuity story, and people will be just as happy as if it is in continuity. I think, especially with anime. But yeah, that was animation panel. Let us know what you guys thought of that. There are some people who are mentioning Tales of the Underworld in the chat here, so I'm going to try to scroll back through and remember the comments. I think it was Batasai says, "Do you think that, as it was said, the new episode of Interest starts right after the end of Dark Disciple? Excuse me. An adaptation of the novel and animation is inevitable. I mean, if it's so to tie into the novel that starts with Ventress dead is something that I doubt it will left only in the novel general audiences. Um, it's a possibility. I don't see it. I think at this point you're much more likely to get some of the other Clone Wars stuff finalized because Dark Disciple was such a long arc. But that being said, I mean, they did talk about and show some of the animatics again. We were talking about that in a stream a couple streams ago. When are they going to make, Clone Wars Legacy available for people to see again? They didn't exactly make it available for people to see, but they made a scene available for people to see. If you go through scrub through yesterday's stream, you can watch it on there. The scene between Boba Fett and Anakin on Coruscant. Um, but yeah, that was the most we've gotten from that. But if they did decide to bring Clone Wars Legacy back, I did want to talk about that actually, and I guess this is the section to talk about it because in that scene, Athena Portillo kind of said like, "Oh, they asked him about Clone Wars Legacy, and she's like, oh, never say never type of thing." And then Filoni jumped on her, kind of in a joking way, but I feel like he was kind of serious. He's like, "Don't say that because now they're going to expect it, and it's not happening." He said it's not happening like 3 times. So I tend to believe him that it's not happening, that we aren't going to get Clone Wars Legacy back in like full animation, but maybe they'll put the animatics back and that's where you can see the Dark Disciple story. But they do have a perfectly serviceable book that people can go read and see how Ventress gets resurrected or how she dies to get resurrected if people watch Tales of the Underworld and are unsure what happened there.
Yeah, no, I agree with all that too. I mean, if they do anything, it's just like that very last few moments of Kenobi and Quinlan just to be like, "Aha, okay, here we go. You can see the models, her being returned to the planet and bam." I
Yeah.
don't know full details. I haven't seen it, obviously, but yeah, I'm excited nonetheless that we're actually getting the resurrection instead of just, "All right, we're here, let's deal with it," sort of situation. It's like, no, like, let's actually showcase the process, and I'm sure there was something very interesting, a lot of hidden messaging, visuals and stuff like that that can have more meaning as the story plays out for her. So, yeah, no, looking forward to it. I just Yeah, don't expect many adaptations. You're gonna see if anything, the closest thing we'll get to something like that is where they're gonna condense, like, an arc like they did for the Kashyyyk arc and make the episode in Bad Batch. I think that's the closest we'll ever get to seeing that stuff, unless it's, like, a bigger arc like this, which, I mean, I don't think there's anything bigger than Dark Disciple because it is proper 8 episodes split in between. Um, yeah, I would expect all that stuff to just be treated as canon like it's always been, just not shown.
Yeah, definitely. I think that's the way they're going, but I would love it if they did it. It can make a great movie too if they wanted to make an animated movie out of it and put it on Disney
Oh, yeah.
Plus.
Oh,
They
yeah.
could absolutely do it. Here's to hoping they do. And then Batasai says we saw new footage from non-fully produced The Clone Wars episodes. I don't think it was new footage. It was footage that was out there, but it's not available anymore. Um, with Boba, Filoni kind of said jokingly that eventually we'll get them. Did you get the same impression? From what I remember watching the stream, he said the complete opposite. Athena kind of was like, "Oh, maybe one day," and he was like, "No, don't say that because then they're gonna expect it, and it's
Yeah.
not coming."
Yeah, yeah.
He said it's not coming. We're not gonna do that. I think he said it multiple times, and so that's why I kind of believed him. Even though Filoni always seems like he's just half joking on everything he says at all of these panels all the time. Like you can never believe anything he said. And he makes a joke about that too in his interviews. Is like he always looks for ways to talk about something else besides the question being asked. So maybe he was just joking, but the way he said it, I don't know. I didn't really buy that he are you sure it was new? Because Clone Wars Legacy had all the Boba episodes you could see that stuff before. Um, with
Well, it
Boba and
wasn't
Anakin.
full episodes though, right, for the Boba, ones? It was just like we
It's
saw
just
clips of what his
just
Tatooine arc
clips.
would have been. Yeah,
Okay,
yeah.
then maybe it was new. But I feel like I've seen that before. I don't know, maybe not. Anyway, it was a 5-second clip, 30-second clip that showed Anakin fighting Boba. It was pretty neat though. But anyway, yeah, I just don't buy that we're ever gonna get it, unfortunately.
Yeah.
Okay, where else were we? Adosai also says another comment about Tales of the Underworld mention was the Voss was with Kenobi. Where do you think it can't be after Order 66 and Voss started the path? Any chance of Kenobi out of Tatooine for reunion with Voss? I think Obi-Wan Kenobi set up the fact that Obi-Wan could absolutely leave Tatooine anytime now. He seems to have gone on his like rediscovery of himself after Obi-Wan Kenobi. I don't think he leaves Tatooine before Obi-Wan Kenobi. I mean, they can change that, but the way they've set up the character, I don't think he leaves Tatooine in the 10 years leading up to the show, but in the 9 years leading up to the show, but in the 10 years after, he definitely could leave. I think he can absolutely leave again and go on a variety of different missions. I think protecting Luke will be his main priority. Learning with Qui-Gon will be his other priority, but if he was called back into action, and I think that's where season 2 of Obi-Wan Kenobi would probably go if they made one, I think he would leave the planet to go on some other adventures, and definitely with Voss, especially because he has a personal connection with Voss, as a friendship with Voss outside of just being a fellow Jedi.
It would be pretty interesting to see Voss survive to that point too. Do I think that's gonna happen? I don't know. I don't know. I know he's referenced obviously in the show, like, "Oh yeah, Voss is always helping out the path and all that." But if they were put together in a room, despite whatever changes that happened to Voss during Dark Disciple or his you characterization, I think they would be fairly notable if they're in the same room together. Like, it would be like they'd have to be super undercover, almost like fully covered up, and I think when you're gonna do something like that for a season 2, I kinda wanna see Quinlan as Quinlan, right? Now could I see the Cody story that's possibly being told? Yeah, I think that was kinda in the plans for season 1 when it was more of a movie and when it's changing and then it got cut out. I could see that. I could see that, but yeah, I mean, I know Battlestar you're saying, he said Bale says that Kenobi's been hiding since Emperor Spurge, just they'll send for him. Yeah, but like again, why would Bail Organa, as close as he is with Mon Mothma, if you've read Mask of Fear, they're not really politically super close. They just, happen to have a lot of the same. groups of interest at one point during the Clone Wars. But yeah, I mean, why would he tell Mon Mothma like, "Oh yeah, by the way, Obi-Wan Kenobi, a very notable Jedi of the Clone Wars era, saved my adopted daughter," who, why would he go out of his way to save her? Like, there's too many questions being raised there. I don't mind that he doesn't have to say that explicitly or like that sentence is now disqualified. I think that still works. It's just missions, I think it are gonna be a little harder to pull off. I would like something to be tied to a mission, but still be focused on his training, with Qui-Gon. Like, if he's around the Tatooine system, I wouldn't mind that either. I think it'd be a great to get a bit of a better understanding of not just all the different landscapes and areas of Tatooine, more than just, like, playing Outlaws would, but, like, okay, what are the neighboring planets? What are the what's it look like in the Hutt space and all, and how he can, like, kind of become a force there without necessarily gauging up to an Imperial interest again.
Well, we got super chats from Anthony Tiff and Toydarian Dan. Anthony says, "Just wanted to say before I go that I'm excited for the Maul show the most TV series and the fact we could see Talon. I know EU purists will cry and moan, but I don't care. I can't wait. Very excited for Maul too. I'm glad you're looking forward to that. Looks awesome." And then Toydarian Dan says, "Great show. Thanks for the weekend get together. Lots of Star Wars excitement. Yeah, lots of really cool things coming out, even if we didn't get to really see any of it firsthand. That's still pretty cool information." But yeah, let's move on to publishing here, and then we'll start going through these comments again. So again, this will be a little longer show because we're trying to get through all this information, but hopefully you guys are enjoying it. Keep sending in your comments. If it's about the thing we're talking about, we'll get to it while we're chatting about this specific topic. If it's not, send in a super chat, it'll bump you up to the top. Otherwise, first come, first serve, and we'll go through everybody else's after. But we're going to run through publishing here, talking about the manga stuff and the book stuff they revealed. And then we'll pretty much just go straight to the chat after that. We have a few other things that we can talk about. If you guys would like to talk about Light and Magic and DLC for Outlaws, and what else do we have? We have some Andor information. We can look up first reactions here a little bit live, see what people are saying. But outside of that, we've mostly covered everything. So let's get to publishing. Publishing, I was happy with, but kind of whelmed by. And unfortunately, that's just because a lot of the information on it came out prior to the panel. So if they would have held back like Master of Evil for the panel, I think it would have been an awesome reveal. But otherwise, the panel was mostly just everybody kind of talking about the stuff that's coming out that they had already revealed. And there are a lot of cool things. Unfortunately, they didn't focus too much on books. They focused on the art stuff a lot, which I thought was interesting. I mean, they have some cool arts collections coming. They have an Industrial Light and Magic collection coming here that looks really cool. It's 800 pages, 2 volumes. It looks so neat. And that's and the Doug Chang book as well, Phantom Menace cover. Phantom Menace to the Mandalorian, all the art from Doug Chang looks really, really neat. December 2nd, 2025, that's coming out. We also officially got an announcement for the art of Andor, which is pretty cool. It's covering both seasons. That's coming out here. I don't think they give a release date yet, but that is coming out soon. And then we got the full cover, not just the front, the back cover as well for Charles Soule's new book, Trials of the Jedi. It's the finale of the High Republic. And again, we're working on the High Republic right now. I'm like a quarter of the way into the light. We'll try to get that review out soon when Star Wars when it starts to rain, it pours with Star Wars information and news and stuff to cover. So we've got Andor coming out now. We've had videos we've had to put out for all that coverage and now celebration. So we're trying to get to into the light to get that review out to you guys. And we also just today got a review copy for the Acolyte book. So we'll be getting that out as soon as we can as well. But yeah, those things are coming. But we got the back revealed, which revealed the full spread for what they're calling the Luminous Nine, who are going to be our main characters of Trials of the Jedi. And it's in a great way. This book is an event. It's ending the whole series. So this really unifies all the forms of the High Republic, and we have characters featured from everything. So the Luminous Nine are Aslan Rel, which I think is a pretty cool one. That's one I didn't expect. Bel Zettifar, Reith Silas, Torben Buck, who's from the High Republic Adventures comics, Avar Chris and Elzar Mann, Buri Yaga, Ty Yorick making her novel return, and Tarek from the Marvel comics. So pretty cool group of characters there, and they will be going to, I believe they said, to Planet X to battle the Nile and the Blight. So that is pretty awesome. They released an image that shows all of them in concept art outside of the main spread we have for the cover, but the cover is just, it's great. I love the colors and the way it looked when they only showed us the front, but seeing the back now as well, it looks fantastic. I can't wait to read that. But the other most exciting book coming out here is Master of Evil by Adam Christopher, who was there and got to talk about the book quite a bit. He reiterated his love and his passion for the Revenge of the Sith novelization, which I thought was also pretty great. And he talked a lot about Master of Evil, including giving us some information about it, stating that it is a story about Darth Vader turning from Anakin Skywalker into Darth Vader. So we had kind of speculated about this when it got announced a couple weeks ago. When will this take place? Master of Evil is a quote from A New Hope. So will it be closer to A New Hope? But then at that point, Anakin is a little bit more, fully evil. He's less Anakin. So how do you write that? How do you write Vader as fully evil Vader? So I think it makes a little more sense to go back and do this story. The only thing that was odd, but it was interesting, and I'm looking forward to reading it to find out, is Adam Christopher specifically talked about how even though he wanted to do this story, it was already covered by Charles Soule in his comics in Darth Vader, Dark Lord of the Sith. And he was like, well, I don't know how to do that story. But then he was reading the Darth Vader, Dark Lord of the Sith comics again and kind of outlining them. And he was like, oh, I found a gap somewhere that I think I can tell this specific story. And he said he didn't even think Charles Soule knows what that gap is. And he's looking forward to everybody kind of seeing what he picked out and how he used this one little bit of information to create an entire Vader story that's going to kind of change Vader fully from Anakin to Vader. So I love the fact that it's tied into Dark Lord of the Sith, because that's still by far the best comic in Star Wars canon and one of the best Star Wars comics ever. So I think that's great. Love the cover still. The book sounds awesome. I was hoping for a little bit of a different timeline, because now it just truly is kind of our canon version of Dark Lord, The Rise of Darth Vader. But I loved Adam Christopher's first book. I thought Shadow of the Sith was great. I think he does his best writing in that book when he's writing the dark side. So I can't wait to see what he does with Master of Evil. So that looked really great. We also got some information on the next High Republic Acolyte stuff. So we have Acolyte, the Crystal Crown. They gave us a little bit more information about that. It's coming out on July 9th. And then I believe May 6th is the next Acolyte book that we just got our review copy for today. So we'll be reading that. That's the one about Vernestra and Master Indara. Then they talked a little bit about comics. So we have the High Republic, Fear of the Jedi, the finale, #1, The Beacon, long title. It's coming out July 30th, which is about a month after the final High Republic book, Trials of the Jedi. And that will kind of be like Eye of the Storm, where it is our epilogue. It fully wraps up the entire High Republic. So pretty excited for that. That's written by Cavan Scott. They released some art for that. We got the High Republic Adventures, The Battle of Iriadu one shot, written by Alyssa Wong. It's coming out April 30th, and we got to see some art for that. Is the High Republic book on pre-order? I'm not sure, actually. You might be able to check it out. Look on a bookstore. But I'm sure it's got to be soon here. It comes out in about 2 months, so a little over 2 months. So it's got to be coming out soon. But we got a lot more covers revealed, some cool new covers revealed for Ethan Sachs' new Hyperspace Stories Codebreaker, which is his Poe Dameron book. So that looks pretty neat. We got some new covers for Jedi Knights, the new Mark Guggenheim book, and it's featuring a couple of the covers feature Kelleran Beck, and he's going to be in issue #8, which is Ahmed Best's Jedi character from Mandalorian season 3. So if you guys are interested in that, definitely check that out. And we got some more covers for Legacy of Vader, including the introduction of a new member of the Knights of Ren, Tava Ren, who's set to face off against Kylo Ren during his time as Supreme Leader. So a lot of cool stuff coming from comics. This all looks really neat. Definitely most excited for Trials of the Jedi. That's still the book I'm most excited for this year, even with Master of Evil getting announced, even though Master of Evil's the best cover I've seen in forever from Star Wars. But I can't wait to see how the High Republic ends. but Master of Evil is a great little addendum to the year. We haven't or it's just nice to know what the rest of our year is looking like from Star Wars Publishing, but wasn't that excited for the Bad Batch or any of the Acolyte material, so it was feeling like kind of an underwhelming year for Star Wars Publishing outside of High Republic, and now that we've got this to end the year, it turned into something pretty exciting. So, Sonic, out of all the information coming out from publishing, what were the things that were most exciting to you?
Honestly, the most exciting thing for me was the Doug Chang books. Like, I think he's been almost to a degree now underplayed,
Mhm.
right? It's like he's so essential to reworking all of Star Wars' visuals and images and all that, right? Like it absolutely changed from the more harder, stronger 90-degree angles and everything, compared to what we saw in the prequels where it's softer, rounder, shinier, and all that. Now, maybe his stuff was a little bit too Phantom Menace inspired, like that period of peace, and then some of those designs had a little bit of a struggle to get to where eventually you have to transition to the X-Wings and the TIE fighters. Man, I mean, I love that he's finally gonna get, like, his own recognition, published recognition instead of just showing up in documentaries. Like, yeah, if you work in ILM, if you work for Lucasfilm, you know how incredible he is. But I don't think a lot of people know how incredible he is, and this will be a chance to be like, "This guy did so many of the craziest concepts and designs that are still being used today." So that actually is gonna be my favorite. Of course, Trials of the Jedi, I think that's gonna be huge for me. I'm just excited to finally wrap up the era. Not in a bad way, just think that Phase 3 has just been so spaced out, it's kinda hard to keep track of so many details when there's so many shows and books and movies, so much entertainment about that, like, this slower schedule after being inundated during Phase 1, it's like, "Ah, man," like, if it was only 2-month gaps, I would've been so much more locked in than I am right now, so, yeah, I mean, overall, pretty pleased. Master of Evil, it's very interesting what you're saying that Adam Christopher said. In my mind, I don't see him not using a lot of Vader Immortal. I think it's almost like a good answer to be like, "Oh,
Mhm.
wow, this is the thing more people know about. I'm not gonna contradict it. I'm actually gonna build off of it." Some stuff that Solda hasn't even seen yet. And then, "Oh, but I'm mostly gonna use Vader Immortal. I'm not gonna just ignore all that stuff. I'm gonna, like, I think it's kinda one of those things. Again, Master of Evil, I feel, does refer to the psychology of the character and him committing with the design of the cover, just something crazy, something insane, right? That, like, there's nothing that you can justify as like, "Oh, it's his transition from Anakin to Vader. Oh, he's been hurt by something." No, it's like, no, this is just like there's nothing you can say, and it's terrifying just how much he can do with this, or the power gained from it, or the choice made here. So, yeah, man, I'm excited for publishing. I'm a little bit more excited about the manga adaptations of, like, Fallen Order and Thrawn. It's a little sad that we
Yeah.
still haven't finished Thrawn Alliance's, like, back half in the comics, and this is already announced, right? Like, just make sure you finish that first. That's pretty essential to fleshing out that story, especially when it's 2 different timelines that take place. But yeah, I agree with the feeling that it is a little bit more of a whimper than you'd assume for publishing, but I do think it's just that they have to move away from the High Republic as it is right now. Obviously, maybe when these books were first greenlit for Acolyte, they were assuming Acolyte's gonna have a season 2 already be announced at this celebration where we're already gonna be working up and building up stuff, and this would
Yeah.
become another way of continuing the High Republic. Obviously, that's changed. I don't want them to stop that, but maybe having a full multimedia initiatives thing is not in the plans for it anymore. Maybe it's more the occasional books until Plagueis deals with eventually, hopefully, Chimera. Because I don't think that's a character that I'd love in the books as much as I do in live action. Like, yes, psychology is insane.
Mhm.
Don't get me wrong. Um, but I do like seeing him fight, and it'd be such a shame to not even get at least animation resolutions to his character and what Osha and May as well. So
Yeah.
yeah, I excited for any of these books. I love seeing the guidebooks and source books and all that, but yeah, I think once we get past this High Republic era completion, next year it's a clean slate. I think we're gonna get so many cool standalones. I wouldn't be surprised if we get finally like proper dedicated trilogies or like mini eras and books 'cause they're already being standalone with the movies and shows now a little bit more willingly, so why not with publishing?
Yeah, and I think that's a great point and probably accurate that they had all these plans assuming that The Acolyte was gonna be this big hit and that they could carry it over and maybe season 2 would be coming in 2027 or 2026 and they'd be bridging the gap, continuing the High Republic up until that point with Phantom Menace because it is so weird how much Acolyte stuff is coming out this year. Like, and they also announced the Acolyte Art of book too this year. So we've got the art of the Acolyte, we have the visual guide for the Acolyte, we have the 2 Acolyte novels. We have Acolyte comics coming out. There's a Kelnaka one shot. They're hyping up Kelnaka being a part of this High Republic comic, the End one that they're working on, or the Beacon that they're working on. So Acolyte was all over publishing, which was kind of interesting. So it did feel like they had started this stuff to tie in to bridge that gap. And then now that the Acolyte's gone, this is kind of like a dead year in terms of like we're dumping all this Acolyte stuff now. And it just feels like underwhelming because nobody really cares. But the art of stuff looks great. And I was going to touch on the manga stuff next, but yeah, I'll piggyback off of what you were saying that the manga does look pretty cool. We did get some more information, like an official cover for the volume one and Path to the Lightsaber, which looks really neat. And I'm excited for that. Again, I want some manga coming from Japanese authors and artists, but this looks really good. Doesn't mean that other people can't do manga form. It's just like if we're going full Japanese, might as well get some Japanese creators to work on this stuff. But excited for the Fallen Order and Thrawn stuff. It's following in that same vein. We've been getting manga adaptations for a while of so many things, whether it be Rebels or some of the big books like Lost Stars or some of the small kids books, like the original like trilogy of Han, Luke, and Leia books that came out when we were publishing and pushing towards Journey to the Force Awakens. So there's a lot of stuff that's come out, and it's exciting to get these. Uh, but but yeah, overall manga. I thought manga was a little more underwhelming than even publishing, just because it's Japan, right? I was hoping for some like reveals
Yeah,
and some new
yeah.
announcements and stuff like that. But one of the weirdest ones was that we're getting a art of Star Wars: A New Hope, the manga, the original Dark Horse mangas that they did back in the 90s, but it's on Kickstarter. So I did find it a little strange that like at Star Wars Celebration, it's a company backed by Disney, and they need a Kickstarter for an art of book about a manga. Like, come on. Like, I don't know. But I mean it looks cool, but it does seem a little crazy that they like, hey, can you guys support Disney even more by paying us Kickstarter money to get this going? And it's probably not even through Disney. That's why they need the Kickstarter going, but it just it comes off as a little weird mixed message to me. But I would love to get that. It looks awesome, and the collection looks really, really cool. So hopefully that goes through. And yeah, all the art of stuff looks really neat. It's interesting they focused on art so much, and I guess art is a big drawing and animation and art and all that stuff is very big when it comes to Japanese culture. So it is pretty neat to focus on a lot of that. And ultimately, I was hoping for more from publishing, especially on the comic manga side, but we did get some pretty cool things. Dope Your Button. It was called The High Republic is called The Trials of the Jedi. That's the new novel. It comes out in June. The only other thing that they announced, and I'm actually kind of excited about this because I didn't buy them in singles, is Visions is getting a paperback collection for all the Visions one shots that we got. So that was pretty neat. Now you can read them if you didn't buy them in singles or don't want to read them digitally. You will be able to get a Treasury edition too. So that should be oversized art and a little bit bigger. So that is quite nice. But that's mostly it in terms of information, big information at least, from Celebration so far. Like we said earlier, Celebration's still going on, and it's going on right now. The Andor panel is out and happening, and people are watching the first episode right now. So we might have some more breaking news as we go on. And in fact, they just announced right now Lego Star Wars Rebuild the Galaxy Pieces of the Past coming to Disney Plus on September 19th. So a new Lego Star Wars. Is it? Let's see if it's a show or it's a continuation of what they did last year, like a little 3-episode show that they did last year was Rebuild the Galaxy. Let's see here. What do they say? It says the second part to Lego Star Wars Rebuild the Galaxy, titled Rebuild the Galaxy Pieces of the Past, was just announced at Celebration with a new poster and cast announcement, including longtime Ahsoka actress Ashley Eckstein as Brickhead's Ahsoka. Take a look at the announcement below. It says all episodes, so I'm assuming it's going to be like last year's, where it's 2 or 3 episodes long. They release them all at once. Nice drop, September 19th. So for those of you who are like, aren't getting more Star Wars this year after May the 4th, rebuild the galaxy pieces of the past. Here we go. That'll keep you satisfied until Mandalorian and Grogu next May. But in all seriousness, I mean, that was a fun show. I enjoyed it. Definitely not something I'm like that excited about, but it was an entertaining show. It looks fun. The poster's got Chewbacca, Ahsoka, and Jackson on it. So Jackson coming to animation for the first time in Lego form. I think that's a good place for him. But let's turn it over to you guys' questions and comments. Yeah. And we'll try to go through as many of these as we can here. We're already 2 hours and 15 minutes into our stream, so we will probably wrap it up here relatively soon. But if you guys want to get in any last questions, comments, theories, anything you'd like to discuss about what's come out here at Celebration, send it in. Super chats first come, first serve. If you don't send in a super chat bumps you up to the top. Check out Patreon and YouTube memberships for more perks. Rebel tier gets you priority chat access. Check out all of that stuff. And then we will be back for our next live stream on. So we're actually, let me put up a poll for that actually, because right now we are trying to decide what we are going to do for Andor, and let's hear your guys' thoughts. Andor, if you don't know, season 2 is being released in 3 episode batches every week, 6 p.m. Pacific time, Tuesday nights. So instead of watching 45 minutes to an hour of TV, you're going to be watching minimum, I would assume, an hour and a half, most likely 2 to 2.5 hours of TV every single week, which is not the easiest for most people on a weekday with work and everything, and then having to go to bed, especially if you're on East Coast or in a different part of the world. So we were planning on doing our full live stream and Q&A for everybody on Wednesdays instead of Tuesdays, where we can take your guys' questions, allow everybody to get, a full 24 hours or so to watch all 3 episodes before joining us to discuss. Let us know if you guys think that's good. Would you rather it be Thursday? We were also throwing around, and we're going to plan on doing this next week, throwing around doing a Tuesday live stream briefly right after we watch the episodes. We're going to binge them, and we were going to do a brief live stream, maybe 30 minutes to an hour reaction kind of thing. First impressions, reaction to the show. If nobody really shows up for that, we probably won't ever do it again. But if you guys show up, and if that's your preferred time is Tuesday at, you know, 8:30, 9 p.m. Pacific, then we can do that. But I assume it's not going to really work for that many people. So I'll put up a poll here right now. Let me take a screenshot of your guys' questions in case it disappears here, because I started the Q&A function earlier. I don't want to lose all the questions. So let me take a couple screenshots, and then we should be good. And then I'll start this poll, and we'll have that going for the last 15, 20 minutes while we finish answering a lot of your guys' questions. But yeah, let me know in the chat here. And if you're watching on replay, let us know in the comments, what day do you prefer Andor coverage? Because the point of these streams is to interact with all of you. We can just make a video if we want to just interact with ourselves. So we want you guys to be a part of it. So if nobody's going to show up on Tuesday, we're not going to do it Tuesday. Nobody's going to show up on Wednesday, we're not going to do it Wednesday. We want to do it a day when people will be there. So let me start the poll option. Which day would you like us to have our Andor live reaction? Sorry for the dead air, everybody. Just updating this, and then we'll be on to the questions for you guys. Sanak, if you want to scroll back to the top and maybe start answer the first question, and then I'll piggyback off of it after.
Question. Oh man, I gotta pop this out a little bit bigger. So Brandon Tran asked, aside from major stars, clips, um, Do I think that besides the Star Wars stuff that we're gonna get other Lucasfilm properties kind of handled here at Celebration? No. No, I think that's a D23 sort of move. D23 always has a big focus on games too. Um, I don't think Eclipse is real. They just straight up admitted, like, within a year that, like, all that stuff in that trailer was just a lie. It was just, like, to be like, "Oh, yeah, like, just so that we had something to show," right? And they have a lot of drama behind the scenes with that company. So, no, I don't believe that. Um, I mean, it wouldn't be too terrible to get Indiana Jones stuff at Star Wars Celebration. I wouldn't hate it, don't get me wrong, but I do think that the game has done it well on its own. It doesn't need that, and I don't know if there's I haven't followed up enough to know if there is, like, a planned DLC for it or not, so I would not expect that to be made a priority, right? Or that's what's gonna happen next.
Yeah, I agree. I don't think Eclipse is ever coming out. I just don't think it exists. What was the other thing you asked about? I gotta
Indiana
pull up.
Jones DLC.
Yeah, Indiana Jones DLC. That since there's no Lucasfilm Games panel, it's a Bit Reactor panel, and I believe that's today. So we should be getting that news this evening, probably late tonight. Since it's a Bit Reactor panel, I don't see them talking about Indiana Jones because that's Bethesda publishing. So it's different than EA, and I don't see EA really wanting to use their spot to promote a Bethesda game. As and then KOTOR remake, I don't think they'll talk about that either. Again, there's no Lucasfilm Games panel. There's no real game focused panel. It's purely focused on Bit Reactor's Zero. I keep wanting to call it Zero Squad. It's Zero
Zero
Company.
Company, yeah.
I it's only focused on that, so I don't really see them talking about that. Maybe they might have a surprise announcement at the end, but I don't think I think KOTOR remake is just one of those things that it'll get revealed. The next thing you hear about it will be when it's like ready, when they're a year out. I think that's the next time they're going to talk about it. I don't think
Yeah.
they're going to give us any updates. And Eclipse, I think, is all but dead. And Great Circle is not EA, so I don't see that happening. But yeah, good thought. Thank you for that. After that, Anthony YouTube fan says, "What am I most excited for? Mando and Grogu number one. Haven't seen the bootleg trailer though. Number two, Star Wars Starfighter. Didn't see that coming. Stay away, Ray. Number three, Maul Shadow Lord, and number four, the High Republic comics. Well, thanks for letting us know your rankings for things you're most looking forward to. Excuse me. Turkish says, "Hey guys." And then let's see. Batasai says, I don't know about you, but I didn't know the snowtroopers had a snow mask. There's always something to know in the universe. I didn't know that either. I was like,
Yeah,
oh,
that
that's
was
cool.
different. I thought it was just like, "Man, that just makes us look cool and fascist," and I'm like, "Alright, that works." And I guess you have a little bit of neck warmth or something, but to
Yeah.
see, like, an actual piece there was not I don't know, I just expected it to be, like, the helmet, not, like, an actual, like,
Yeah.
connectable thing.
Yeah, me too. I didn't know that existed. It seems like even less functional than before now, but I don't know. It was a neat little thing. I feel like somebody just like dropped one of the masks and it broke and it looked like that. And they're like, oh, that would be
Like,
pretty cool if we
"Wait a
showed the
second."
snowtrooper. Yeah, it seemed like that. Let's see. We've gone through a lot of these, so I'm trying to remember which ones we've gone through. Um, I think we already answered most of those. Brandon Tran says, I hope Eclipse is not canceled and it's still coming out. Last trailer focused on High Republic came out in 2021. Yeah, Brandon, I hope it's not canceled too because it looked awesome, but I think it is. Uh, it's it feels like forever ago. 2021 was forever ago, but yeah, we were still like in our infancy on this channel. Like we barely had started this channel. I remember covering it, and it
Yeah.
was pretty exciting because it was one of the first big announcements we'd gotten from video games when we were running a Star Wars channel, and haven't heard a word since. So I would not be shocked if it's completely gone. A lot of other Star Wars games that got a lot further in development and got canceled. So just because we saw a cinematic, don't believe, especially in the world of video games, don't believe that it actually exists.
I think it's the very definition of fake news, It's piecing together things that are, like, very, dishonest and misinformed and, like, have gone to that effort of, like, being like, "Oh, we might deal with Jedha, we're gonna deal with these High Republic Jedi, and, okay, here's some Trade Federation connections, and who's this mysterious alien from," and, like, they threw a lot of cool things at us, and then you realize, oh, that was just them, like, stirring up interest, trying to, like, fundraise for a project that they're nowhere close to being on track for. They've got
Yeah.
so much stuff behind the scenes, it's like, "Ah, man, I hate that," and I you would think video game trailers, like, they're not dishonest, things can change, that's kinda the nature of games versus movies and stuff, where fundamentally things might be cut and all that, but yeah, I don't know what the hell that was. I was so excited for it, and then it goes to, like, are we gonna hear anything about it? Are we gonna get this reworked into something to, like, oh, the more and more I hear about it, the more I'm kinda glad they didn't handle this story because I think it would've been a mess, and it would've been so unfocused. It could if they 'cause they'd probably have to build off a lot of what they showed off in that first trailer.
Yeah. And that company too is not, they make one specific type of game. And
Yeah.
so I don't think, as cool and as open and as amazing as that game looked, like it's so varied in their environments and amazing visuals and really different looking stuff. If it actually was made by that specific company, what was the name of the company? I'm blanking on their name. But if it was made by them, the guys who made Detroit Become
Quantic
Human,
Dream, yeah.
Quantic Dream. If it was made by the guys who made Detroit Become Human, that game is not open at all. Like all that stuff you saw, you would be walking through it in a, a stage scene if it was similar. And I remember them saying, "Oh, this is going to be, unlike anything we've ever made. It was going to be a lot more expansive, a lot different." I think I, I don't want you guys to quote me on this, but I feel like they said something about it being kind of open world or RPG esque. And yeah, it would have been a huge undertaking for them considering they had never made a game like that. So that's the only, I guess, if you want to be glass half full, you can maybe think of it as like, because they've never made a game like that, maybe they're still working on it and they're just really, deep down the development pipeline. But I wouldn't be shocked if it's gone forever. But the one thing about the world of video games is that every time you think something's dead, it pops up again. It always does, whether it is Beyond Good and Evil 2, Metroid Prime 4, which is actually finally coming out this year, whether it's what else? BioShock Infinite was a dead game walking for a long time, and that came out, was amazing. There's a lot of video games that have been in development hell or people thought were canceled altogether and then eventually came out and actually were great. There's also a lot that came out and were awful. So we will see what they they end up doing with the clips. But I think it's just going to be one of those cool pieces of Star Wars history that you're like, oh yeah, remember that, and then it never exists. Badasai says after Andor season 2, apparently we have nothing else until 2026. Wrong, Badasai, because we just got the Lego Star Wars Rebuild the Galaxy announcement, so only partially right. Um, but yeah, we don't have anything until 2076. Um, they want to cut us the water. They want to cut us the water to increase the hype for the movie in 2026. I'm not sure what you mean by that, but yes, they want to. I think
Sparsity, yeah, yeah.
yeah, they want to build that hype. I think I said in a stream a while ago when we were talking about 2025, maybe it was in our preview of 2025, that I expected them to announce a couple other things for 2025, but it would make me more confident in the things they're working on if they don't, because that means they're all in on those projects. They don't have all these small little random projects we don't know about that they're just going to drop. They're actually all in on the projects they're working on, and 2026 is going to be kind of like 2015 or 2021 was, where it's just kind of like this rebirth of new Star Wars content, a little bit of a reset and a restart on almost every facet of the company. We're getting a brand new ongoing live action, or I mean, yeah, a brand new live action film. We're getting a brand new ongoing animated TV show. We're getting a second season of one of their prestige shows. All this stuff is coming from them, and I'm sure we'll probably get a game that we haven't heard about or a game that they've been working on. Just seems like a full reset for them in 2026. I think unless you want to include Bit Reactor's game, which I'm assuming will come out in the fall, unless you want to include that as a major Star Wars release, it seems like Lego Star Wars is it for the second half of the year. And they actually haven't revealed when Visions is coming out. It could be in that. I was thinking the September 19th release they just announced for Lego Star Wars was going to be the Visions date because they gave May the 4th to Tales of the Underworld. But now that they filled that up, maybe Visions is either the summer, maybe it's also May the 4th, maybe it's a winter, it could be anytime. So we do have Visions. That's the one thing I think you're leaving out, I guess, if you're just specifically looking at the TV side and the film side.
Yeah, I mean, scheduling for the back half of this year is gonna be weird, just because I I don't really see Star Wars as a brand right now trying to suddenly restabilize and do everything and like do like all the publishing kind of build up usually before the next big thing happens. Um, yeah, it might suck for us. I'm not gonna deny that, but I think this is good for us too because wouldn't you like a Disney that finally has Marvel back on some sort of track here from Deadpool? If your only real dip is maybe Brave New World, right, as, like, how your MCU is doing, and basically from Deadpool onwards, things have been going pretty smooth, chugging along. If Thunderbolts and Fantastic Four are well received, and these are the ones post Chapek with Iger back, that only gives me optimism and hope for Star Wars that they're like, "Okay, this works great here." Like I said, we're gonna look at what's working with the MCU, what especially with these MCU-esque storytelling that we're doing with the Metaverse, see what needs to be applied there for the next year, drop it here, connect it here, bing, bang, bop, right? And I honestly it's it's weird because I know there's a sense that we might get another celebration next year in the States, but I think there's rumors that when Kathleen was on stage, she was kinda, like, almost spilled that it's gonna be skipped next year, they're gonna go straight to 2027. So, yeah, maybe they're super confident, like Liam is saying, that they're just heads down, grinding out everything they need to do, and next year will be stacked. So, I'm fully excited for that. I'm fully on board for something like that to happen.
Yeah, as much as it's like we've gotten used to Star Wars coming out every year, and I definitely look forward to it. It's my favorite franchise. So anytime there's Star Wars, it's top of my most anticipated list, right? It does give me more confidence and makes me more excited for the things that are coming if we don't have any. And I think that's what they're trying to do. It's not just starve us or make us, crave Star Wars. It's the fact that I have confidence that they're putting 1,000,000% into the projects they've got going instead of just announcing a million things and we never know which ones are going to come out. So I think that's a good course correction. Hopefully that is the direction they're going. We did get social media reactions are out now for Andor, and they're currently going currently the Ahsoka panel just started. So we'll dawdle a little bit longer, I guess, and see if any news comes out of Ahsoka. But let's read some of the reactions for Andor right now. These are just random people tweeting. And people say, I believe overall it will be remembered as a masterpiece. With some minor nitpicks as a Star Wars fan, the final 6 episodes especially will have viewers glued to their seats. Well, this person saw the whole season.
Yeah, they're showing the
Wow.
season off to a lot of people, yeah.
Okay, so some people are talking about the season right now. Um, I guess they allowed people who have seen the season to release their social media posts. So this is even better than hearing about people's reactions to the first episode. Uh, So this person, laughingplace.com, says, I believe overall will be remembered as a masterpiece with some minor nitpicks as a Star Wars fan. Final 6 episodes especially will have viewers glued to their seats with intrigue and surprises and suspense, I mean. Full review coming Monday. Eric Goldman says Andor Season 2 continues a notably intense, thoughtful take on Star Wars that feels topical in ways that are both powerful and sometimes heartbreaking. Hurtling through 4 years of story in 12 episodes does make some aspects disjointed, but the show's core remains strong. So that was something I was a little concerned about, was how are they going to juggle, making full character arcs across these 12 episodes if every 3 it jumps a year in time. How are they going to give time to each character? So it's not too surprising to hear some of it's a little disjointed, but I'm glad the core story is there. Perry Nemiroff says Andor season 2 is phenomenal. Often series reactions are done having just seen a few episodes, but not this time around. I've seen the full season and can wholeheartedly say this is the best season of Star Wars TV I've ever seen. That's pretty great to hear. What Batasai says, any chance with all these people having watched all 12 episodes, the controversial recast is leaked early online? It's a possibility, definitely a possibility. I think a lot of these people are media access, so I don't know if they want to risk losing their media access to Disney stuff, but they will if they leak it online. But it might get leaked for sure. Let's see here. Next one is Maggie Lovett, who says social media embargo is up. Can finally share that I've seen the entirety of Andor season 2. This is the best Star Wars has ever existed and ever will exist. I'm not being hyperbolic. This series was everything. You'll see everything I've poured into my lengthy review next week. But Diego Luna and the entire cast and crew have created something that will stand the test of time. Timely, heartbreaking, inspiring, perfect. Thank you, Tony Gilroy, for making this series and blessing us all with impeccable storytelling. I wish I could fully express how much Andor and this corner of the universe means to me, but it means everything. A lot of glowing reviews. But I think, Sanak, like when you hear these things, does this make you more excited or is it just like kind of par for the course, right? Like Andor's great already. This just is reconfirming the fact that I should be excited for Andor because these reviews are excellent, just like season one's reviews were excellent.
Yeah, no, I think I end up actually enjoying it every time, kind of like falling for this thing every year and for every show. I just want it to be good, right? Like, I think that's at the end of the day, everyone's definition of that is going to change, right? I think Filoni had a great line, like, yeah, I'm not trying to compare different things. I'm not trying to make things better than the other. It's like they're all stars. I love it. They're all different, right? So, um, I look at Andor as like the only exception to that rule because I think it is. I've already put on our latest tier list of TV shows and movies. It's an S tier for me with season 1
Yeah.
alone. I'm on the prison arc right now, so I'll get my rewatch finished just in time for season 2. The Maggie one though, she's I believe with Collider, so that's still they're always like clued in, especially on Disney, especially on these bigger franchises. So yeah, I mean, if she's saying that, I am gonna take her word for it. I think that nitpicks might be with the recast, might be with like some like, "Oh, like I wish you could have shown us the shot of the character," like you were so
Yeah.
close to showing it and then you pull back, and then the recast of probably Bale, right? That might throw people off. I really hope that they do everything to make Benjamin Bratt, if he is playing Bale, look like Bale, have him work with an accent coach to be as close as Jimmy Smits' Bale, like I would have rather had Jimmy Smits all the way. I think that's just what it goes without a doubt, but I can live with it if it's, like, a total of 15 minutes, right? I'm like, "Okay, Bale was on a cool new diet pill or something," or, like, the water gave him, like, diarrhea and he just couldn't eat a lot this week or something, I can live with that. Characters in Star Wars and most entertainment franchises don't age naturally. They just end up getting bigger, stronger, better looking, all this and that, right? And Star Wars is no Star Wars is no franchise to be doing that, but they did for all of the EU. So then I think when people were like, "Oh, Carrie Fisher and Harrison Ford and Hamill are back," they're like, "They look great," and then they're like, but not that great. I'm like, "Well, no, it's not realistic, right?" Like, and I'm glad if Jimmy Smits had, like, a couple of periods where he didn't look 100% great, fine. I just think that all he needed really for Kenobi was a little bit better makeup. I think the makeup was pretty poor on him. The costume was fine, but yeah, you people change with their body shapes throughout their lives. I if it fluctuates, it fluctuates. I'm not really someone who's like, "Oh, man, he just looks so much older." Like, he could have just been worn down. You can write story around that. You can make it be like he just got picked up out of, like, a very risky situation that he almost got caught up in or something. There's so many ways to write around that, so I can see that being something like a stickler for fans like us, like being like, "Man, and if especially if it doesn't feel like Jimmy Smits Bale, which is now another
Yeah.
wall that running up to, like, at least if we had Jimmy Smits play them and he's doing, like, a very different, more sincere, more very meticulous and detailed version of Bale like we see in Mask of Fear, that would work for a lot of people. That might not work for all the prequel lovers, but that would work for a lot of people because it's still the actor. Now it's like, okay, if you take a big swing on what his character is gonna be used for, and it just doesn't look anywhere near like him, or it doesn't sound like him, I can see that being an issue. Um, Yeah, I could also see people being like, "Oh, no Ghost Crew, I only see Chopper." I'm like, "That's fine. I love it, but I don't hate it either," right? So, I'm okay. I'm okay with, all those nitpicks. I just think that there's a lot of the hyperbole that they sometimes throw around 1 or 2 reviews every show, the fact that it's kinda being repeated gives me hope. I I was not a fan of the format of the release drops also on top of that, how it's being structured, but if it works, I'm happy.
I am too. Anything that works is fine. I agree. I hate that they can't get Jimmy Smits if that's actually the recast, but Bail Organa, I would assume, is in this show no more than 15 minutes, probably for just a couple impactful scenes. And if that's the smallest problem with this show, then we're in pretty good shape. Uh, but yeah, yeah, Abadisai saying allergic reaction or like Obi-Wan when they change his face in, into the bounty hunter in the box episodes. But yeah, I don't know. I mean, as I take early reactions with a grain of salt, even though they've seen the whole show, even though these are professional critics. I feel like half the time we get early reactions, people are like, "Oh, it was really good," or "Oh, it was great," and then the reviews come out, and it's like half of what the early reactions were saying. Like the 10 people who said it was great, then the score is like, oh, it's actually like a 6 out of 10 when you get the full review critics. So I'm not saying that that's going to happen here, but I just like I don't get much more exciting hearing this, but it's much better than hearing I didn't like the show. So
Yeah.
that's always a positive that the first few people liked it, even if I think the jury will always still be out for us as individuals until we all see it. But continuing with these, Jermaine Lucier says, "I've seen all of Andor season 2, and it's both Star Wars at its best and a triumphant storytelling in general. I cried, cheered, laughed, gasped. It's smart, sophisticated, propulsive, entertaining, and hugely resonant. Everything you want and more. It's a miracle." Wow. Ashley Saunders, Andor season 2 is phenomenal, exhilarating, intriguing, and full of heart stopping and gut wrenching moments as it walks us into the start of Rogue One. Diego Luna and Stellan Skarsgård are once again incredible. Welcome to the rebellion. It's great to be back. That's I'm glad she mentioned Stellan Skarsgård because I feel like so much of the marketing and everything we've all focused on Mon Mothma, Cassian, even Saw Gerrera more than Luthen. It's nice to hear that Luthen at least leaves a mark in this season as well. So that's one of my favorite things I've heard so far from these reactions. Chalice says, having screened the entire second season of Andor, I have to say I'm blown away at the pure experience. The storytelling is top notch, and the way everything weaves together is perfectly executed. Diego Luna is such a gem, and Kyle Soler's Cyril was my favorite character. Let's see. I got to click on the tweet to see the rest of it. For his sheer reliability, and that final shot of the series is just beautiful. Well, can't wait to see what that shot is. But yeah, another shout out to another character we haven't seen that much from the marketing of this season specifically with Cyril. It's nice to know some of these Andor season 1 characters are making a big mark. Let's read. Eric Davis here says, I've watched the entire second season of Andor, and it is as good, if not better, than the first. From an epic opening TIE fighter heist to a finale that left me in tears, the show has it all. Hang on, because the last 6 episodes are all bangers. Absolutely loved it. Be prepared to want to watch Rogue One immediately after finishing. It truly sets up that film and expands upon the characters and the stakes in some emotional ways. Just getting to watch Andor and K2 on a mission again meant everything. The cast crushes it. The sets are incredible. Star Wars fans will adore this and all the classic lore explored. Big recommend. Well, that's great to hear too. And that's I mean, a slight spoiler, I guess, but they have released the TIE fighter clip as well on YouTube. But the fact that it's an opening scene. But it also makes me excited because I love hearing that the stuff in the trailers is early in the show because I want the rest to be
Yeah,
really
you definitely
exciting.
want
But
new
I'm
stuff. Yeah.
yeah, exactly. And I'm so happy to hear that the last 6 episodes are all phenomenal. Like that's even better to me too because Disney Plus Star Wars shows and Disney Plus Marvel shows have had such a terrible time finishing their seasons. And it's great to hear that the end of this show and this season is actually really great. One Take News says Andor Season 2 is a dream come true for Star Wars fans. The action is great. Tony Gilroy's storytelling is even better. Casting Andor's story is one of the most complete character arcs we have seen in ages and arguably the best story in all of Star Wars. Simply put, this season confirms Andor is on intergalactic levels of greatness and might be the best show in the Disney Plus library. I think it already is. So I don't know what other one Take Media is comparing it to, but there's not too many other ones to really compare it to. But yeah, there's a lot more reactions. Everybody saying it's great. Haven't seen anything saying it's even mediocre. I think the most I've seen is somebody saying it was a little disjointed, but every other reaction says it's great. Tara Bennett says it's a top 5 Star Wars thing, which I think it's yeah, it's right there for me. Already with season 1, it's in that top 6-ish for me, so season 2 can definitely put it over the top, get it in that top 5. But yeah, it's really exciting to hear that all this is that it's living up to the hype. I mean, the last thing you want to hear obviously is that people are like, "Oh, it was, not as good as season 1. It's all right." Hopefully, some people like it. I didn't love it, but the ending's great. It's just nice to hear everybody saying, yeah, from top to bottom, it's fantastic. Madam Sai, the Manslayer says any bricks and crews mentioned in the reviews.
Bricks and
Uh,
screws, like,
like
an
the
unnamed channel once brought up in their review.
no, there was nobody mentioning the bricks and screws. So we'll wait for that channel to really give you the full breakdown on the backgrounds and the oh my god, yeah, now I know what you're talking about. Let's go back to the Ahsoka panel, in other words, 'cause, we really should be wrapping up, but I feel like if we end it right now, there's gonna be something that comes out of Ahsoka, and, we're gonna miss it. So, Ahsoka, let's see, it says Filoni talked about Miyazaki's influence on Star Wars and specifically Princess Mononoke influencing his creation of this Ahsoka character. After the first season of Mandalorian, we were figuring out what to do next, and we thought there'd be an opportunity to start introductions of other characters that had been introduced in other media. First and foremost, his favorite character, Ahsoka. It sort of served as a de facto plot for us to see if this show could work. That's what John Favreau said. And then Dave Filoni says it came to my attention because you, Rosario Dawson, were involved online, and then it came to me where I was like, "Oh yeah, you would be a good Ahsoka." Okay, that's a very Dave Filoni response to that stuff. Like, yeah, yeah, like somebody brought it. That's George Lucas esque too. Like, yeah, yeah, somebody told me online you'd be cool. So here we go. Oh man. My AirPod just died, which is not great because I can't hear Sanak at all. So I'm gonna charge
Yeah.
it for a couple seconds here,
That's
and
I'll carry
yeah,
here for
hopefully
the
we'll wing
last
this.
bit. Any substance to the rumor that Favreau's eager to leave Star Wars after
Boy,
Mando?
I don't have anything else I can put on it.
No, I don't think so. I I don't think, I don't think that's a real thing. I think he probably
Keys that I
struggled
never
juggling
used.
the show translation into making it a movie franchise, the time that was spent without Filoni working hand in hand with him. I think that probably made it harder for him. But eager to leave Star Wars? No, I mean, I think he's had a great relationship with Disney. Obviously, he started off with Marvel, Iron Man 1 and 2. He's done the Lion King live action remake. He's done a lot. So eager to leave Star Wars, and the only way I could see that is if he's like, "Oh, I'm not trying to get, like, stuck in a leadership capacity," and he wants to be a little bit more free to explore different movies and different franchises and whatever his heart desires, right? Yeah. I can see that feeling. I don't see any substance that he's like, "I'm done with Star Wars." Like, there was some rumor that, like, oh, he didn't even direct most of Mandalorian Grogu. He was, like, sick and like, he just was tired of the crew and all that, and then people were like, "No, he was out for a week, and we used, like, an iPad on, like, one of those rolling dollies, so that way he could, like, see the shot that's on set with his, his second team," and yeah, I think a lot of the rumor mill about, like, personal stuff happening, I don't trust most of it. I don't. It's just because it's everyone has an agenda to, help them get a better position or to put someone else down. Like, it's company politics. That's not something that we were really privy to as much during the George Lucas era. Obviously, being under Disney, that becomes a little bit more apparent kinda everything that every media outlet wants to pull from, especially with the size of the franchise, but yeah, no, I think Favreau, if anything, he might have just been tired. He's not the healthiest guy, right? Like, I think that could be a factor for why he got sick too on set. The stress of the conversion from show to movie to reworking Mandoverse, extending it out further and all that. But no, I don't I think it's a very real thing that just happened, and then he came back within a week, because still his baby, and he's still a great filmmaker. He might not be a great TV show runner, but as a filmmaker, I do really trust his directing skills, and I think everyone still should. I just rewatched the season 2 premiere, showed it to 2 friends of mine who had never seen anything from The Mandalorian, anything from Disney Plus Star Wars, and they're like, "Wow." Well, yeah, that's Jon Favreau. He can deliver action with emotional weight, always, so, yeah, I'm not really worried about, like, "Oh, he's gonna leave." It's like, I think we would've heard more rumblings of that, even more than we heard about Kathleen Kennedy then.
Yeah, I agree. And from what I saw yesterday too, they were like Filoni was talking about how fun it was to see Favreau directing on set and like how he learned a
Yeah.
lot from seeing him direct a film. So it seemed like he was really involved. And I know Favreau when he got up there on celebration stage or like yeah, in front of everybody and he was being interviewed, he was talking about how lucky he was to be in Star Wars and how he doesn't want to leave anytime soon. So I don't know if that was in direct response to some of the rumors or if that was just him actually saying like, "Hey, I might be here for a lot more time." And if The Mandalorian turns into any type of movie franchise, he's gonna be there for a very, very long time. But yeah, I got my other headphones working now, so now I can hear you guys. But yeah, that sounds like they're mostly just talking about season one right now. What we're camping out waiting is to see if they bring up anything about season two. I mean, we don't expect them to show anything because they haven't started shooting yet, from what I hear. But they sorry, I was looking at the poll results. I forgot we did the poll. From what we hear, they haven't started shooting yet. It looks like they're supposed to start shooting here pretty soon. Hayden's got the Anakin mullet going a little bit, and I'm pretty sure he used to wear a wig for it, but if he doesn't want to wear a wig now, he's got the hair going. So it definitely looks like they're about to start shooting soon, and it would make sense because obviously Filoni, Rosario Dawson, Hayden Christensen, they want to all be able to be away from set if they were shooting right now. So hopefully that's coming here soon, and I think that's kind of the only thing that we can really wait for from Ahsoka. I think my other prediction for Ahsoka panel was the confirmation of the recast of Rory McCann for Balin Skull. I feel like they could bring out Rory and show him off and talk about, how sad it was losing Ray Stevenson and how amazing he was and how much he brought to the show. And it'd be impossible to recast, but they think they found the next best person. Here we go. We got Rory McCann, who knew Ray Stevenson, good friends, blah, 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 all that stuff. But right now, they are just talking about Anakin. And I think they just introduced Hayden Christensen on stage, and it says they're watching some scenes of Ahsoka episode 5 when Hayden and Ahsoka are fighting and all that, and then Hayden just left. Um, but yeah, so I don't know. You guys want us to camp out for a little bit longer to talk about Ahsoka, or are you guys good for the chat? I mean, it's been almost 3 hours we've been streaming, so covered a lot of the stuff. I don't know how much more details there will be, but I don't imagine they're going to show much of note or have much of note to talk about with Ahsoka other than maybe a release date for the season. But I would be surprised if they even announced that, considering they haven't started shooting yet. But I would imagine it's a similar release date to what they did for season one because of the Mandalorian Grogu coming out in May. I don't see it releasing before that, and I mean, they didn't get the world's greatest viewership in their release date previously, so maybe they hold back to the fall or winter. But I think it will be a second half of 2026 thing, and they're gonna drop it there. But yeah, I don't know. What do you think, Seneca? Should we hang around here as the Ahsoka news keeps coming out, or do we need to wrap this up?
I wanna stick around, but I don't know just how much we're gonna get, right? Like, even when they did in 23 in Celebration Europe, they had, like, Rosario on set being like, "Oh, we just started. Here's cool new look at the Montrals and all that." But they all the big players seem to be maybe, obviously Natasha and all those people are not maybe they're filming right now or just getting ready to start filming, and all
Yeah.
these bigger, more legacy heavy hitters are here at Japan right now. But yeah, I mean, they also moved everything over, right? Like now they're officially shooting everything in Pinewood or at least in London. So
Mhm.
yeah, I think it's gonna be more of a structural thing, like how exactly they're approaching season 2 with the changes, with the change to the Mandoverse and everything, like, what does that mean for this show? Is this proper conclusion to Ahsoka's arc, etcetera? So, yeah, I can see some cool things like Hayden, like you said, Battlesai, Hayden showing up. I can see some of the other actors if they're not on set. If we see multiple people show up, it means we're still, like, 2 months away from, like, actually seeing set leaks. Like, they might start
Yeah.
filming some stunt work and all that, but that's about it. So,
Yeah. Yeah.
yeah, excited, but I think this is gonna be more of, like, a, "Let's discuss how it's sat for a couple years now," like, compared to, like, "Oh, like, these are all the big heavy things you need to know, direction, concept art, shots of them," like, if that happens, great, we'll cover it tomorrow, guys, that's for sure. We're trying to go live, I believe, like, sometime Saturday afternoon, but, um, yeah, I don't know, but for your last question here, Badasai, before our time to die, what do you expect to see Star Wars so we can die happy
Oh
when enough
man.
Star Wars to say, "Okay, I'm done"? Never? That's, like, one of my saddest things. I know at some point I won't be able to watch the latest Star Wars thing or read them. Like, I won't be able to be a proper completionist. Like, in a selfish way, I wanna be, like, 102 and be like, "Finally, the Star Wars is over." Like, I've read everything, watched everything, all that, and I would die honestly, very peacefully from that, but it's a mythology, and mythology doesn't just go away, like, just because it's so detailed and structured right now doesn't mean that we're gonna be dealing with this century that we've been kind of centered around for 50 years. 50 years from now, someone might be being like, "Why do you guys care about the Skywalker so much besides, like, the first film?" It's like,
Right.
"Look how much cooler the Old Republic ended up being, and that was 15 years old. Look how much 300 years past was or maybe even the post-sequel era became such a huge thing for people." Like, we don't know, right? So there's just so many ways it's a galaxy, and we now literally have multiple galaxies, like, I just don't see ever to see something in Star Wars that makes me so happy that I can die because 'cause I'll be like, "No, I wanna see the next thing, I wanna see the next season," etcetera, right? So, yeah, I think whenever the final days come, I'll be like you, Battlesai, I might reach out and be like, "Hey, what just show me the latest thing. I just need some answers," have conversation with the head honcho creatively, and then yeah, yeah. But no, I do agree with Best. I wanna see Ben Solo back. I think he will be in some shape or form sooner than later, especially if these, post-sequel stuff start working out like Starfighter and Rey's New Jedi Order film and everything, like, I think that becomes inevitable at that point, so,
Yeah.
yeah, it's the harsh reality, but the silver lining is that, like, it doesn't stop with us. It's something that I hope, like, people in 23, 25 will look back in 1976 audiences and be like, "I get it."
Yeah. I mean, I don't expect I can ever have enough Star Wars. I'll always be interested. I think I think quality is the main thing that makes you wane your interest, or at least for me. Like I just the past year it's been hard to get super excited for some of the new stuff. Very excited about Andor because Andor is already something I'm in love with, and very successful. But post Acolyte, post, Boba Fett and some of the mediocrity of Ahsoka at times and Obi-Wan at times, and some of these things I've gotten really excited for, I think has made my excitement wane generally. My cautious meter go up. My caution meter's gone way up in the last few years where I'm just like not unabashedly excited for everything anymore. I can like have to temper my expectations a little bit. But I'll always be interested in Star Wars. And every time I hear something's good, even if maybe we're not, we're older and we're not doing this show anymore. We're not doing any type of reaction content. It's not like as important for us to react to things immediately. I might be more hesitant to jump on something till I hear it's good, but I think I'll always be interested in something Star Wars, especially if it's good. because Star Wars has been my thing since I was 4 years old. It's been something I've loved forever, and that won't just go away. And I intend on sharing it with my kids one day and sharing it with my grandkids one day, and it's going to be a part of my life forever. So I'll always be excited for whatever the new Star Wars thing is. It'll never be enough for me, but I just hope for quality, and I hope for it to continue to really inspire both me and everybody else, all the next generations, forever and ever. But yeah, I think let me do one last refresh here of the feed for Ahsoka panel and see if anything has come out of it. I think they're just talking right now about about the show, and that's what the Ahsoka panel is supposed to be, is a reflection on season one. It's not supposed to be anything more than that, but it just also seems really weird to just only do a reflection on season one when um season two hasn't come out and you're at Star Wars Celebration, and like none of the other shows or movies are doing like, oh, the reflection on such and such without some type of announcement, right? So um yeah, it seems like they're going to reveal something, just might not be for another hour. And I don't know if we can do a 4-hour stream. So we were considering and planning on doing some type of stream probably tomorrow afternoon. We may not, don't hold us to it. If there's nothing that comes out, we might not do it if there's no real information, because we just did a 3-hour, super max stream uh tonight. So we might not do it, but if there's some big news that comes out, whether it's about Ahsoka or Bit Reactor like reveals a bunch of new stuff, or I know some people are talking about Jedi 3, when is that going to get announced or revealed? If there is something about Jedi 3 or some other new Star Wars game, or Visions is tomorrow morning, if they do put out something really important about Visions, then you probably will see us back. If nothing else comes out other than maybe a Ahsoka release date or a few other tidbits, we might not go live. So don't think about it, but don't plan on it. We're not there. And it looks like, based on the poll, I mean, not too many people voted. And again, vote in this. We have way more people watching right now than have voted in this poll. So vote in the poll if you have not and you're watching. But right now it says more people, just by a hair, say they'd rather see Tuesday night after episode drops reactions to Andor over Wednesday, and Wednesday is second place over Thursday. Almost nobody says Thursday. Thursday is not ideal for us either, because we want to talk about it as soon as possible. So Thursday is more to give you guys a chance to watch it if you can't get through it. But I think we're going to hold to our plan, though, in case we don't see you guys before Andor. We'll reiterate our plan. We're going to hold to our plan of trying a short reaction, probably. I can't guarantee the time because we don't know the time, the length of the episodes, but probably 8:30 to 9 p.m. Pacific time for uh Andor season 2 episodes 1, 2, and 3 next week, and it will be a short reaction just to give you guys our thoughts, talk with some of the people who have seen it, and then Wednesday we'll do our full hour and a half to 2 hour theories, speculation, discussion, where you guys can all bring your questions, your comments, let us know what you think. Maybe we'll get our review out of the way on Tuesday so that you guys can check out our thoughts, and then Wednesday you can see the full thing. But we're going to try to make it work for both. If we have way bigger attendance on Tuesday and nobody shows up on Wednesday, then we might switch to Tuesday only. If we have way bigger attendance on Wednesday and nobody shows up on Tuesday, we might switch to Wednesday only. It's such a weird release strategy. We've never really seen anything like this. Usually it's all, when shows come out, it's all 1-day drops or it's weekly drops. We've never really seen 4 3-episode drops, at least not with Star Wars. So it's definitely a learning experience, growing experience for all of us. And every week we will be ready to talk about it. Batasize says, great. Another 3-hour stream after a 2-hour episode. Count me in. It will not be a 3-hour stream after the episodes, though, because it's going to be late already for us. It's going to start getting to 9, 10, 11 o'clock. So, but yeah. And I guess we'll wrap it up. I guess, Sonic, if you want to answer, what's your favorite Star Wars book? Because Critical Thinker knows mine is Plagueis. Do you have a favorite Star Wars book ever?
Favorite ever? Probably I Jedi.
Nice. Good pick. All right. Well, that's going to wrap up our stream, I think, tonight. Let me do one more refresh on this Ahsoka page. Yeah, it looks like they're just still talking about about season 1 and what the process was of making it. They're only about 30 to 45 minutes into the stream. I think 40 minutes. I think it started at 9 p.m. Pacific. So, all right, we're going to wrap it up tonight. Thank you guys so much for showing up for this long, supersized episode. Hopefully, you enjoyed our coverage of this episode. I'll try to put the labels in case you want to go back to different sections and hear us talk about different things if you missed some of it at the beginning, the timestamps. I mean, but yeah, thank you for watching. Keep an eye out tomorrow in case we do a stream. I think it's very tentative. It's based on the information that comes out, so keep an eye out for that. Stay tuned. Andor coverage will be happening again, like I said, Tuesday night and Wednesday night this week, just to test out which one works better. Hopefully, you guys enjoy that. I did post today the characters who will be in Andor season 2, or characters who could be in Andor season 2 video. Check that out if you haven't. There's a short that just went up, I believe, at 9 o'clock. So you can check that out if you haven't. Pulls twice a day, every day. Shorts Monday, Wednesday, Friday, and videos will continue to come out usually about twice a week. We'll be starting Andor predictions next week as well. So keep an eye out on the channel for that. Thanks so much for watching, everybody. And we will see you on Tuesday for Andor.